Town Hall Critical Room, Town Council Special Meeting, roll call please.
Councilor Legro. Here. Mayor Sakala.
Here.
Councilor Crisati.
Here.
Councilor Hall.
I'm here.
Councilor Mangini. Here. Councilor Matthews.
Here.
Councilor Pisner. Here. Deputy Mayor Santinella. I believe he's coming later. Councilor Thomas.
Here.
Councilor Ungary. Here. And Councilor Zanoni.
Here.
10 members present, 1 is absent.
Thank you. I know John said he's trying to get on. I know that tonight is a crazy night at the Capitol, so Carol, and I'll tell this to John when he gets on, or I'll tell him otherwise, but if you guys need to dip in and out, totally understandable, because I know it's crazy. So if there's something that you have a question on that we're discussing and you think you're gonna have to get up and leave, just let us know and make sure you have your chance before you have to get up and go vote or whatever it is if it's happening at the Capitol tonight. 'Cause I know it's supposed to be crazy.
Okay.
All right, so 2 on the agenda is budget deliberations. This is night 3. Everybody should have in front of them where we sort of ended the last night. Some of the additions and subtractions, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a little bit of a difference between where we ended and what we're seeing today, because there was a few different calculations or things were moved where they should be. So I don't know if we, Matt, if you want to start a really quick update on that, and then we can get started.
Yes, so when the state actually adopted the budget, there were a couple of differences from what we had. I'm just getting my file open here. The main, thing was that there was nothing added to the ECS funding. Okay, but there was a supplemental education aid of 1,192,946. There was an increase in the, there was another supplemental Pequot grant for 575,188. And there was an increase in pilot funding for 87,842. The main thing being the change in the ECS funding, okay? If it was part of the ECS funding, since we are an alliance district, anything in excess of what we received for ECS funding in 2012 goes directly to the Board of Education. Because of that, we reduced the amount, the appropriation to ECS in the last Wednesday's version of it. Okay. They didn't change that, or they changed that to the supplemental education aid. That money is coming directly to the town, but it's stipulated that we have to spend it on education. Now, what does that mean? They're still doing some research on that. This is when I say they, I mean CCM is who I've been talking to about it. My understanding of it though is the increase that we are giving to the board, they're requesting and we're going to grant to the Board of Education is more than the amount we are receiving in supplemental aid. That means that we can use that entire amount of supplemental aid to go towards the mill rate.
Okay, so that one point, go ahead.
Yeah, I was
Go,
saying,
Matt.
although it's not very clear out there.
Right, so there's really no difference in the number that we
Right.
had from the state. It's just, it's still coming to the town. And
Right.
then we're going to then give it to the BOE. And so
Yeah,
then
it
we're
will
gonna
be as
reduce-
part of their original request for the amount they originally requested.
Yes, but we're kind of
The
like,
original, right,
so we're getting it, we're giving it to them.
right,
So it really still reduces our number.
yes.
Okay. Carol, did you have a question on that piece?
Now, just a comment. So the supplemental funding that came to this to the towns, definitely was slated to go towards tax relief, because so many of the towns have already passed their budgets. So what this allowed the towns to do that already passed their budgets was take that amount, that whatever you got as a town, and you could reopen and reduce your mill rate. So basically that we actually got a total of increase in municipal aid of $1,768,134 is the total number that is legitimately coming to the town. And then next year, not on this budget we're negotiating now, but on the next ECS budget, the floor number for the education ECS is going to go up. So they're going to get a nice bump next year, and then they're going to rework the formula for ECS as well as getting a floor bump. So next year, that number for ECS should be over 30 million.
Okay. Okay.
So that big number that we're getting, and it really is municipal aid. So it's supposed to come off what the towns are contributing to the education budget. So that number is, John has it, it's that 1 million. If you add up all those numbers, it'll come to 1,768,134.
Right, but by your logic, regardless, it's used to reduce the mill rate, and we can do that by still giving it to the Board of Ed and reducing what we're using our mill rate, our fund balance by that amount.
Well, it would be reducing, if it's going to affect your mill rate, you would reduce your contribution that you're giving to the board is what they're saying you can use it to do.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Right. We haven't passed our budget yet, so
Correct.
so everything that we're integrating now is basically mill rate mitigation, because it's money that we can put either against the town or the board request or whatever. It's the towns that have already passed their budgets. That's where it just gets, that's where there's some confusion, but it doesn't apply to us because we haven't adopted the budget yet.
That's
Carol's right. So Carol's right. We haven't passed, because we haven't passed the budget. It effectively is money that goes into this pool from the state that, because of where we are in the process, it's mill rate mitigation. And what's not included in that number is the $300,000 that will be coming as a supplemental grant down the road. So that will appear in a line item in the budget. It's not in the budget legislation that we just passed. So that's going to be money that will sort of be,
Done.
Yeah.
Would that be handled the same way that they did the fire consolidation money that we got?
Probably the same way.
Sometime around September, we should get notice of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right. So the numbers we have up there, I know, does anybody have any questions on the numbers that are up there right now? Okay, so that's what we've already done some work on. I know that I'd like Matt to start with the CIP number that we were talking about at our very first meeting, that CIP switch that he was doing. He's got a number for us, and we're gonna put that up on the board. We're gonna see where that puts us, because that is money that we had not accounted for. Well, go ahead, Matt.
Right, and so effectively, we go as a decrease in the expenditure because we're going to be taking the equivalent amount of capital projects that I had put in the budget as the proposed budget. Instead of funding it with money out of the general fund, it's going to now be money paid for out of the capital, project. Right, everyone understand that?
So it's going in as a reduced expenditure.
Yeah, so on here, on big board, it's gonna be a reduction in the transfer ultimately. And we're sending to capital. So after going through, a lot of reiterations of all 296 lines, the number that I think is a safe number, that's not going, looked at all the projects, all the active projects, or what are considered active projects, what projects are actually having money spent on the project, that was approved by council. So kind of going through all those different things, going through some of the projects that are still active, but I know based upon, the encumbrances, there aren't any more encumbrances, all those things. The final number I came up with was 600,000.
All right. Awesome. That's a little above the initial
Yeah.
number that we had last week. Okay, so can we put that up? On the board, please. It's gonna be like a 0.2. Because a little under a 0.2. All right, 1.8. All right. And so 1.8 increase right now, mill increase is a 5.71% increase. All right. So for those tracking. Can I just ask and I mean, this actually may be more for Alex. What do the people who are watching see? They don't see this board, right?
Yeah, they do.
They
They've seen
do.
this,
Do they
yeah.
see this room? Or what, did they just see the board?
They would see what's here.
Okay, perfect. All right, good. I just want to make sure if that's what, okay. All right, so
Yeah.
people can see what we're referring to. All right. Any questions about that number? Any questions, concerns about that number? He said that that's a comfortable number that he's with. It's not going to, not 100% final perhaps, but a good comfortable number. All right. Anything from Matt, anything else from you or John before we start?
Yeah, the only other thing is that we found out earlier today as we were double checking some things, that we had left out the front desk employees or part-time employees here at town hall. So we would need to add back into the budget $49,328. That's wages plus FICA plus Medicare.
Okay, and that was actually in last year's budget. We just didn't add it into this budget for
Yeah,
some
for
reason.
some
we were
reason,
coming in.
it wasn't
Okay.
in the push that happens at the start of the budget.
Yeah,
Which I don't know
It's
why.
not a new position,
yeah.
because we forgot.
I think this is the one, these are the ones, right, that a
Yeah.
couple of years ago were taken out,
Yes.
actually. And then we put them back in, I think like halfway through the year, or whatever, but they were in last year's budget.
Right.
Yeah.
But they got
They just-
forgotten.
Yeah.
Okay.
Poor ladies.
Yes.
And gentlemen. And gentlemen, or whoever, go back. All right, so we're adding then 49,328. That's salaries and benefits
Yes.
total.
There's
All in?
no benefits,
Okay,
only.
just all in.
only-
Okay, that's the all in. Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, so that is kind of where we stand as the starting point tonight. The chief is coming at 7, my understanding is. I know that there were questions for him. Thank you to those people who sent those ahead of time. That way, hopefully he can be prepared and Matt can be prepared. And we can kind of make the most of our time. Where do we want to start? We've done the vehicles. I know the chief is going to talk a little bit more about the vehicles on his side. I know, I have 1 or 2 suggestions. I know that, where do you guys want to start? Anybody have a?
Can I just have a
Opinion?
quick question on this one?
Yeah.
On the reduced capital transfer for the LoSiP payment, where is that in this book?
I think it was in CIP.
So, yeah, so,
I don't see it, that's what I'm looking at.
yeah, so that is a revenue that comes into the town. The LoSiP.
Right.
I wasn't aware it's going directly into the CIP account. I thought it was coming into the general fund and then it goes out. So the reduction would happen again in the transfer to the CIP line item. We reduced that number, which was originally 4 million, by that 400 and whatever it was. So
But I don't actually see it in our CIP here.
what don't you see?
The LoSiP, it's not, so it's not really in this book.
Well, it's not an expenditure, it's a revenue. So
Okay, so it has to be in the other, okay. Making sure I understand it.
Where that comes out on the expense side, though, is the 500,000 that we contribute to the roads program. That is the major funder for that.
Okay.
I was just gonna add, one of the questions that was asked was to get a complete list of all the vehicles.
Yeah, I saw that one out.
Did it go out today?
I thought it was. Isn't that what you sent out?
No, I don't think it's been sent yet because it's a very large spreadsheet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we were trying to figure out how to get this out in a way that is usable. I think Cheryl's figured that out, so that'll be going out first thing in the morning. But that would be an inclusive list of all the vehicles that we own. And I believe also non-motor vehicle or equipment as well, I believe is in that.
All right, where do you guys want to start? Did you guys want to talk about, do you guys want to
Well,
talk about?
I'm gonna go back to, I'm gonna be honest with you, we have some cuts on the vehicles and that I think are justifiable, so I don't mind talking to that.
Police and DPW side.
I'm fine with you reducing the cruisers for the police.
Yep.
But on the DPW side, I do have some questions on some of those vehicles.
Did you send those questions to Matt so he could have answers for you?
Well, no, it's really just cuts.
Oh, okay.
Kind of just, but I can justify why I cut them.
Okay.
I guess is my.
All right, what are you looking at? Yeah, no, that's fine. So, yeah, go ahead.
Hang on. I just want to get all my facts and whatever. Where's all my? So we had, so the ambulance we did say was going up for a lease. So that one we took off of this because that's fine. But, we have an ambulance that's on the lease. So the next one was the ETV cover. So if we're going to be giving the police chief more cruisers, then we're going to have some cars that are backup. So we're figuring that could go to an ETV car. So we're suggesting we cut the ETV car.
And that's fine, but it probably wouldn't be an Explorer because it's a larger vehicle, has all the equipment in it. So it would have to be a larger vehicle than an Explorer. So you could say if we get the ambulance, the ambulance that goes out of service, that could be replaced.
But that's the one that the ETV car is going to be used for, right? It said the
Well, no,
ambulance is
currently-
now being used by ETV.
Yeah, it currently has an old ambulance that it's used for. So I mean, if you want to take that off, we would probably look to one of the ambulances that goes out of service and retool that, or there's also a van that they're proposing to replace that might be able to use for that.
Well, that was one of the, so that's $46,000.
Which one?
The number, the 2001
Yeah,
ambulance
the second
is going to
one
be
was-
used by ETV.
What would they do with that? If they want to replace it, what's the plan? What are they going to do with that?
The old one,
Mm-hmm.
that would be auction.
Awesome.
Yes. That would go into the proceeds that, you know, occasionally we come into council with requests for transfer from the
Yep.
proceeds to replace a vehicle. That would go into that account and then it would be used for whatever. We don't know what we would get for this ambulance that's in there right now.
Right. Is there an anticipated revenue line of auction revenue in the budget built in, or is that all town?
Yeah,
Okay.
you really don't know. Sometimes you get, somebody happens to be looking for something. And you get a lot more than you expect, but most of the time you don't.
Mhm.
Most of the time they're less than, $5,000.
Okay.
The other one was below that, the 2006 van. It's got 70,000 miles on it. And it's in poor condition, but I mean, honestly, 70,000 miles on a van. And it's the DPW engineering. I mean, that was another vehicle that we looked to not fund. So that would be another 60. And the dump truck, we just gave DPW 2 new dump trucks in September. They just got 2 brand new dump trucks last September. So, again, this was another one that it only has 45,000 miles on it.
I think the dump truck's included under the leasing program.
Well, there's,
No, but there's 2 different ones.
Yeah.
There's, right, this is the
Okay.
purchased one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't, that's what I'm saying. So we want one that we want to lease and then, we just gave them 2 in September. And to me, a dump truck with 45,000 miles on it.
I don't know that the mileage is the.
I don't
deciding
see,
well, let me just say, in talking with, the fleet manager after our last meeting, he had proposed that we keep the one that's up for the lease and move this particular one over to the lease.
factor. So
Oh,
we,
that makes sense.
you're.
so you're
All
gonna
of
lose
them.
one. You're still, so one comes up.
Yeah, we're doing what we're saying, but this one would actually end up being replaced, and the one that's on the lease would be kept, because I guess that one is in better shape than this one.
So we're adding a dump truck?
No,
No,
We're gonna take one
No,
off.
yes, we're leasing in the one.
so there's
leased.
two, so there's 2 for replacement.
Yeah.
Right, one on lease,
So
one on purchase.
What's gonna happen is there will be one replaced, and it would be this one, the one that was on the lease would be taken off, and this one will replace.
Okay, all right.
and what does that put us behind though?
Hmm?
I mean, what does that do for next year? Does that put us behind?
Well, it's gonna come back.
Yeah,
I mean, eventually it has to be replaced.
$2 million for vehicles this year is just a huge amount to swallow. I just think it's a big figure.
All right, it's a big, but and again, I don't want to argue with you because
No,
that's the way you
I'm
get.
not. I'm not. I'm just looking
Yeah.
at this from a perspective of the taxpayers.
Yeah.
That they're looking at a figure of $2 million. It's really 2,500,000 because 500 of it is going to lease.
It's-
So, and that lease payment is for the next 5 years. We have to find money for that. So again, it's putting us in debt $500,000 a year right off the bat for the next 5 years. And it's almost like, I don't know, I just
Oh.
got rid of a car that had 79,000 miles on it and I couldn't afford a brand new one. I bought one that was 2 years old. I just look at some of these and I'm not seeing. I mean, one of them here was a custodial car, like I don't, 16 years old.
why do they need it?
Well, that's what I'm looking at. Give me a second. The 2008 car, oh, that one was the WPC. It was an ex-police car, so they're replacing it. But what does the WPC use a car for? I mean, does he have a car to take home? Does he?
So these vehicles for WPC are going to be used to go out and do the call before you dig, any of the thing, because so the alternative with these, so they will run them until the wheels fall off. Once the wheels fall off, they'll be taking one of the larger vehicles out to do those call before you dig. So they'll be taking a larger dump to do something that doesn't make any sense to be taking a large dump because it's just putting mileage on our dumps as well as the big vehicles. So the things that they do now, call before you dig is one of them. When they're looking to see if there is an issue, they don't You know, they send out one of their vehicles or one person in the vehicle. So those type of things is what they do with these vehicles. And so if they don't have the vehicle, they still have to go out. They will just take whatever is in the yard to drive. Now, again, I've said this before, we need to go through and right side our fleet, but we're not going to do it in a 4-week period right now. It's going to take probably the next year to come up with where we need to really be with all the vehicles. And so it's okay to take those off if you want, but again, at some point, there's going to be vehicles that are going to have to be replaced. And that's where we're going to be.
So the way I look at it, if I can, is I understand that we may need to right size our fleet, whether it's DPW, WPCA, police, whatever fleet cars are here, right? So, but we're not adding just to add to the pile. We're adding to replace the ones that need replacing. And at that point, once we have right-sized our fleet, that may reduce the amount that we have to replace next year, right? Like that's my logic, right? I'm saying if it takes you that long, you know, the next year to figure out, we're not replacing vehicles we're not going to use at this point, right? None of these vehicles look like they're not something that we would be using. But I'm sorry, Marie, were you done?
Again, I'm just looking at mileage on vehicles too. And some of these I think can go 100,000 miles. I don't believe a car with 63,000 miles is seeing its life expectancy. It's not like they're driving them thousands of miles a year. They're driving them around town. So I do have a problem with some of these vehicles. I mean, I'm always of the thinking that I'd rather use what we have and then we'll find the money to buy them without tacking on a mill rate. And that's my thinking.
So this dump
I'm not
truck,
a fast
right?
thinker, but they have 2 brand new dumps. So what does that give them?
Right.
How many total dump trucks do we now have at DPW?
Total
I
new?
don't remember.
No, total, how many total, like how many?
I was gonna
we
say
were- we didn't get that number.
was 14, but that's again, just going by memory. I mean,
How many?
I want to say it's 14, but don't quote me on that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is mileage something we should be looking at when we're talking about replacing these vehicles, or is it their actual operational functions that they need to be replaced for?
I'm sorry, I'm just getting
Looking at
full
it, yes.
information.
So should we be looking at the mileage of these vehicles? Is that how we test their usefulness, or is it the actual operations of said vehicles?
So there's a number of factors you need to take into consideration when you're looking at vehicle replacement. And this was what Rick started out with in his presentation, right?
Mhm.
You know, mileage is one of those. But it depends on what kind of mileage you're putting on it. You know, a dump truck, most likely the dump truck in the town of Enfield is going to be doing plowing as well. So it's not just driving around, it's driving around in a very poor situation with a lot of salt in the bed. And so there's probably a lot of rust on the body that is going to mitigate that, and there's going to be rust on the undercarriage. Right, so mileage is a factor.
It is a fact.
I think, yeah, it's a factor, but you know, you look at an ambulance, for instance, you know, you look at the mileage on the ambulance. Well, you know, that ambulance sits in idles for a long time as well. So you really need to look more at the hours on that vehicle than the mileage. And again, it just depends upon the vehicle. You know, a Vector truck, you're going to be looking most likely at the hours on the Vector rather than the miles, because it's going to have low mileage. Because the only time we're taking it out is when we have a purpose, when I was just driving that around. But when we take it out, it could be on the scene for 8 hours doing something.
Right.
So that's pumps and all those things that are sitting there idling that are going to, you know, wear, you know, that's the wear and tear.
So it is the wear and tear
A police car.
that they looked at.
Yeah, police car, you know, again, you're gonna say, you know, there is a mileage component to the police car, but they never turn those police cars off except when they go home at the end of the day, right? You know, they put it in the police barn and they turn it off. Those things are gonna have a lot of idling hours as well. So I mean, it's going to depend upon the vehicle.
Thank you, that makes more sense.
So Marie, I have so far the ambulance, the van,
The
And then-
07 dump truck.
and then the 07. So is that, did DPW decide that that's what they wanted to do to move this?
So, well, I just wanted to clarify. So you're saying last year or this year they got 2 dump trucks
Just September of 2025.
in 25? Okay. So what we just purchased, those were trash trucks, not dump trucks.
I believe they were refuse trucks,
Yeah.
trash trucks. I don't think they were dump,
No,
they
no,
were
those were trash trucks.
trash trucks,
Yeah.
not dump trucks. Yes.
But again, I just think, but you said one of those is coming up.
Yeah, the one, what we would propose is the one that is in there for the lease right now. We would keep that one and take this one off the purchase list and go to the lease list.
Okay, so if we're moving that to the lease list,
Yep.
what does that do?
Well, that reduces
That reduces
your $2
the,
million by that 325,000.
but, right, but if you're moving it to the lease, you're really only reducing the lease piece, not.
No,
No, you're taking it off this.
Yeah,
one.
the lease number stays the same.
Yep,
You're reducing the 2 million that's in there for vehicles, you
Mhm.
reduce that by that amount.
mhm.
So they would continue to use the truck that they had on the lease schedule. And this one, so we don't get one truck. Rather than purchase one truck and lease one truck, we would only lease the one truck and continue using that one until wheels fall off or next year, whichever comes first.
So those 3 vehicles that Marie outlined is 431,000. So I came up with the
We got a
ETV.
couple more.
So
Well,
which one they
So
want
what,
for this vehicle?
well, I don't know that they're necessarily agreeable to any of them, but they're saying.
It's just, it's our suggestions.
No, I'm not,
Yeah.
I was talking about DPW.
So, well, excuse me, everyone. So when we're looking at the lease on this particular, we have 2 dump trucks that are on the lease. Is one of those coming off?
Yes, but you're actually still gonna have 2 dump trucks on there. Because this one on the purchase is going to the lease, is what they're saying.
Five leases.
So that would make it 3 leases.
No.
Buy one of those.
They said they're
At
gonna
least
keep
get
one. I mean, DPW didn't say that they would want to do that. They just said if push comes to
Yeah.
shove, that's what they're, that's.
They would
that's
be
what they
happy
have
with
to
2
do.
new ones instead of 3.
All right, do you want to tell us your other?
The 2007 dump truck is the one that they would want to remove from the lease list.
Okay, all right.
The
That's what I
2003
wanted
they
to
would
know.
want to keep.
Yes, okay,
Yes,
All right.
that's the only one that
Lease 2, but they wouldn't purchase any.
thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Correct.
that makes much more sense now to see the 2007 removed. Okay.
All right, and what are your other ones?
The 08 car,
Which one?
for WPC. I mean, and the DPW custodial car, that's the 2008. I don't, currently on loan to custodial division.
Mhm.
The 2010, the SUV hybrid, I don't know why we never buy a hybrid because of the battery. The 2010 car for community development. The 2013 SUV for the building ground or the building, and then the 2013 van for DPW and B&G. I know that one got totaled and a tree fell on it.
You
And the-
don't want to replace that one?
Well, again, do we need to? I'd like to know bigger numbers here because how many people are driving vans through the day? How many of these vehicles are actually being driven every single day by somebody? And how many are just sitting there parked?
So what of these questions did you email ahead of time? Because I mean, I'm fine. If you want to give,
We can have Don's here tomorrow. And.
that's fine. But if you
How
have
we
these
need is a
questions,
number of how many vehicles are out
but
there.
that's not what you're asking, actually. You're asking for additional questions that if you want the answers to, which you're totally entitled to those answers, if you want to, I guess, micromanage DPW in that amount, and that's fine. He can come here and answer, but it would be super helpful to have those questions ahead of time, so he could have those answers and Matt could have those answers. So, because you don't just want to reduce the numbers, you want to know why they're on here, which is fine, but.
I just want, I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter. I think we can.
Okay.
No, she's just saying to remove them.
Okay,
So I
yeah, it
think
doesn't matter.
probably a better way to go about that is pick the number you want to reduce by, and then fleet can figure out what, prioritize what money, what can be done.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the cars we removed came to $1,295,000.
1,295,000. Okay. Carol?
So basically Marie's given you all our cuts for the vehicles. I guess to something that Matt said, I mean, if we're looking to right size our police vehicles and our DPW and our building and grounds, I feel like if we're going to reduce any purchases, it would make sense to do it this year. And when we have a better plan on purchasing and what we need and what we don't need, after we've gone through the exercise of getting a better feel of what we truly need in these departments, and right sizing our fleets, then we can look at what the needs really are. So I feel like it's a good time to take these reductions, and then as we go through the exercise, right sizing these fleets, then we look at a really good comprehensive plan. And I know, and Matt, I don't know if you remember the assistant town manager that went to Rhode Island. I can't remember his name. Derek, that's it. That's it. So basically he came up with a whole vehicle plan, and it worked for all the departments, and each department had like a schedule. And like, for example, the police department was 777. So we would do 7 vehicles every year, and that met their needs. So it was like, okay, I think that's where Matt's going, not necessarily the numbers, but a plan, right? And we stick with the plan, right? So that's all I'm saying. If we're going to take cuts in vehicles, I think this year is the year to do it. And then we have a plan going forward after this. But that's just my opinion on the vehicles. So thank you.
Go ahead, Matt.
Real quick. Action in that, Derek, Rick with Fleet Davenport, did a lot of work on that. I mean, and got it down to what absolutely we could all look at and say, this is what our fleet should look like. Mm-hmm. Since then, however, there had been a number of years that they didn't make the purchases that was recommended on that. So, you have this kind of this compression that happens, and then the expansion, right? So they stopped making the purchases. So cars that needed to be replaced in certain years. And I think after I had left, the manager was hired, kind of went to this lease program where everything was being leased, which, contrary to what it may look like with this budget, I don't believe in leasing vehicles. But when you're so far behind, at least from my perspective, and you need to get kind of an infusion of larger vehicles, it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But, that's the problem. They are trying to follow that vehicle replacement plan. I mean, the plan that they're using today is the same plan that was put together back in 2013, 2014, whenever we did that. So it's still alive. It's just that in the years between, 2014 and today, there's a lot of vehicles that hadn't been replaced. And again, I don't know what vehicles were added to the fleet that changes that. I think the issue that I want you to deal with in all this and understand is that even when we right size it, we're still going to be looking at replacements in that $1.5 to $2 million a year. I mean, there's just, with as much rolling stock as we have, any plan that you have for replacements is going to put us in that number. It's just, because we looked at this again, we did extensive work on it in 2014. And the numbers were huge to begin with. And ultimately, when we got to what everyone agreed was the right size, and everyone being internally the staff, we were still at $2 million a year. And again, you can push off purchases, but in pushing off, especially large purchases, you're not pushing off a year, you're pushing off 16 to 18 to 24 months. And so you got to keep that in mind that, we may be leasing a vehicle, a large dump truck, but we may not be getting that vehicle until the end of the upcoming fiscal year, because they're saying those are 8 to 9 to 10 months out at the best. And if something happens to the supply chain, who knows how long it's going to take.
Right.
So I think again, we can do that, if you want to say we're just doing this for 1 year, that's fine. But I don't want you to think that next year is going to be any different, or the following year or the following year. You're going to have to deal with figuring out how to, or we start changing our operations. Do we need to plow every street? And I'm just being really crazy here, right? But I'm just trying to make a point.
Right.
When you start looking at it, because, we have large trucks for a reason, a couple of reasons. One, if we're out doing a sewer line project or we have to haul stuff, we need a big truck. But the real reason why you have big trucks is because in the winter, you're pushing 18 inches of snow at times. And you need X amount of trucks to be able to touch every street.
Right. So
I've
we
been
don't
in those
have
communities.
contractors that we have to sub to, right?
Yeah, I've been in those communities where they've made that decision, we're not touching every street. We're gonna touch the mains and we'll touch school streets, and that's it. And it takes less vehicles. And so I guess that's a conversation that is a lot longer than this budget deliberation that we have. But I think if we're serious about reducing what our costs are, I think we need to get serious about not pushing the expenses off until next year, because nothing's going down, right?
Okay. All right.
So-
We need to look at things.
Wait, hang on 1 second. So this is the way, so Matt's suggestion was, don't cut per vehicle, just cut a number, and whatever we have consensus to, that's gonna be the number that the fleet has to deal with. So my suggestion, since we already have that 510 up there that is agreed upon, what the suggestion is 1.295 million more of a reduction. So the way I would just do this is there consensus for 1.295 more of reduction? I know they have 3.
I just had a question.
But if there's not consensus, then is there a number that has a consensus? Yeah, so, John, I saw your hand, and then I know Zach had a question, and I know Cindy had a question.
So
But let's not spend 6 hours on vehicles, guys.
I don't want to do that, but I just want to reinforce that what we are doing here is trying to put together the plan. I think Matt has done a really good job of laying the basis for the ongoing plan in the next several years. And I think it's important to remember, it doesn't take much to get into a huge hole here. If you just take police vehicles, I'm just going to use police vehicles because it's the easiest example. If the plan is to ask for 7 every year and deliver 7 every year, and then 1 year you don't deliver any, which has been done in the past, the next year's ask to stay on plan is 14. It is just, that's a big ask. And that's a big hole that you have to get out of. And even if you were to increase from 7 to 8 just to try to get out of the hole, it's 7 years to get out of that hole. It's like, it really is about creating a plan that we can live with and executing the plan, because that's the only way that this is going to, in the long term, get us into the right place. So before we start, again, I'm not trying to be cavalier about the budget, but just remember, the older these cars get, the longer we hold on to them, the more expensive of an asset they are. And while we're not replacing anything, we're keeping a house with a leaking roof, bad electricity, flooding, and all these other problems that we're trying to fix. That's not an enviable place. So the $1 million that we might be suggesting that we're going to cut because we want to put things off could end up costing us way more than that in deferrals and other things. So I really just want to advocate that. I think Matt has come up with a very solid plan. I think we've made some adjustments to the police cruisers. It's the right thing to do because we potentially have additional revenue that we can get ourselves out of that with. They're tied to one another, but we don't have a plan like that for everything else. And all we're going to do is get ourselves deeper into a hole. So thank you.
Thank you. Zach, I saw you, and then Cindy, and then Carol.
Yeah, so what amount, because Marie had mentioned that this is counting against our military. What amount of the fund balance from the unallocated or fund balance is being used for the vehicle replacement plan? Because is this actually counting against I thought we were using part of $5 million towards this.
Well, in my mind, the way that I would sell this, yes, 3 million of that 5 million is going towards CIP.
Yeah, so
So if you read.
So this is less of a conversation about the mill rate because we're taking it out of our fund balance.
It's just less fund balance we're going to use for CIP and that we can use for something else to
But
bring
then-
down the mill rate, or less money we're using in CIP.
I guess
Or
that's
fund
fair,
balance,
but I have reservations about what else we could use the fund balance for, given it's mostly reoccurring expenses, and that just creates a far bigger hole. Which, 2022 could be a good example of that.
Yep.
So, I think with this $500,000 reduction now, that's at 1.5 million, and I think, as you alluded to, Matt, that's kind of the bottom line of what we could expect to have to sustainably invest in capital improvement, right? And I know that I had noted in the past that I think that the current asks are not sustainable, but I want a number we can routinely invest in. And when I look at 1.5, to me, that seems like a number that I'm willing to 100% back year after year. And we should try to orientate around that. So I'm not going to move beyond the 1.5 that we're already talking about. But because it's at 2 million and we're taking 500,000 out. So I'm comfortable with what's on the board.
Okay, all right. Cindy?
Thank you. I do want to echo Councilor Santinella. Matt, you've done a phenomenal job with the budget overall, and also especially with the DPW piece. And so is our DPW people have done a great job. However, having said that, having a plan is something that we definitely need. And I know you've been speaking on that for a while now, and John pointed to it. I am uncomfortable at this point with arbitrarily reducing by any number. What I'm saying here are removed from service, cannot be repaired. You've got rot in some of these vehicles, and our mayor pointed out earlier that question should have gone to our town attorney for this deliberation so we can get answers from DPW. Which vehicles are truly unsafe to be on the road? Which vehicles can we continue to use for another year? And my suggestion at this point to our mayor is that every council person here that has a question or needs additional information, get a hold of our town manager to maybe bring in a DPW person tomorrow, and we can get that resolved. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, just slash 1.5 or reduce by 1. I want to know which vehicles are safe. Which ones do we genuinely have the ability to hold off on? I think that's important. You've got some vehicles that are unsafe, and that to me is disturbing. Thank you.
Carol, go ahead. There's also people who haven't spoken for the first time who have their hands up.
Okay, go to them first then.
Are
I'll
you
wait.
sure? Okay. Maya and then Bob and then Lori, did you just have your hand up? Okay.
Yeah, just a quick statement that I think it would be irresponsible to come to a consensus on a number tonight that you want to slash until we have Fleet go through with, if we're proposing the 1.5 reduction, have them go through and set their priorities. But I would also like to know how it affects services and operations. Okay, that's it.
Bob?
Yeah, based on DPW's report that they gave to us in regards to all of the vehicle replacements. If you, once again, take a look at the grand total of expenses that they do, it's over 130, close to $130,000 a year. That's just for maintenance on these vehicles. That's a lot of money. And they did come to us with what vehicles need to be replaced. So there's no hidden surprises here to say which vehicle should we eliminate or come up with a particular amount to say that we're going to get rid of. These are vehicles that need to be replaced, and I will tell you, I've sat in on several DPW meetings throughout the years, and these vehicles need to be replaced. They're old. They're up to 27 years old, 14, 50, the 27-year-old vehicles. And these plows take a pounding. These big dump trucks take a pounding during our winters. Doesn't matter how many miles that are on it, they take a pounding when they're out there in a blizzard and storms. And does it affect our operations, as the town manager just stated? Do we want streets to say, oh, we're only going to do certain roads and then we're going to eliminate services because we're not going to follow a particular plan that's being put in place for vehicles? That's something that we have to take a look at. I am not in favor of looking at a number to say, okay, let's get rid of that. No, we have a plan that's going to be put in place. We should start following it. It's financially responsible in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori?
Steve, what was that number that you calculated?
In the first three, 431,000, that was the ETV vehicle, the van.
Did you add in the other ones?
I didn't add the other ones after that. You came up with it.
It's the number I gave, is all the.
$1,295,000.
Okay, yeah, that's what I
think
have.
that's what.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that being said, I've always been a proponent of not telling a department directly what you're gonna do without. I just assume cut everybody 2% and then you tell me what you can live without. But that being said, if we agreed to the 1.295, Matt, and have the department prioritize their vehicles, let them decide what they think they could let go of instead of us picking them off one at a time.
Are you saying you're only gonna give them $800,000 for capital improvement this year?
What?
It's in, it's 2 million, so you would leave them for $800,000 for capital improvement.
For vehicles.
For vehicles. That's like 60%.
Don't forget the leases, Zach. It's just the purchases we're looking at.
Were you done? Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Carol.
Yeah, so we're hitting the purchases, Zach, not just the leases. I mean, we've got leases in place, so that's my point. The other piece, and I keep going back to what Matt referenced, is knowing the right size for all these fleets. And we did have a comprehensive plan, and we veered off at some point from working that plan. And here's the perfect example. I think John referenced, we go like lengths of time without purchasing anything. But like in 20, and I'll use the police department only because I have the spreadsheets here in front of me. But like in 2025, it says that there were 10 purchases. In 2024, there was 6, plus another one. In 2023, there were 12. In 2022, there was 11 plus 1. In 2021, I've got a 6. And then in 2025, so I mean, they're all over the map, right? So we do need a comprehensive plan, and we need it for all the departments, not just one department. And I think our point at this point, without beating a dead horse, and I feel like I'm doing that at this point, and I don't want to do that, is that we do need that right size plan to make the right purchases and be consistent with those purchases. So that's our only argument. I think when we went line by line, which tomorrow morning or afternoon, we'll go through the revenue side of the budget a little more thoroughly. We have some revenue stuff done, but when we looked at the budget, we spent, like I said, all day Sunday on it. And our main goal is to get as low on the mill rate as we possibly could, because we have that referendum being pushed out this year. So, for me, and I'm talking for myself here, if you want to get a very hefty referendum passed, you can't roll out a $1.5 million or $2 million increase. That's just my humble opinion. So we're working very hard to get this mill rate down as low as possible. I mean, with what we're looking at, we're at a $0.5 million increase right now, our cuts. So, I mean, that's without digging too far, into the revenue. So, I mean, I just want to put that out there. We're not being arbitrary in saying we just want to cut. I think we're going methodically through it, and that's how we're kind of coming up with these. So, and I think to go forward, like putting a plan in place that Derek had, we did stick to that for quite a while. So I think that is the way to go. And I think Matt said that's going to take him a while to put together. So I think we look to that in the next budget cycle, but that's just me. So thank you.
Thank you. So just a couple of things, because police is here. So listen, I'm not going to be one of consensus to cut from any more vehicles. That's just, I'm telling you, me, you're not going to get a consensus from me. I'm not going to vote in favor of it. That being said, we had a vehicle replacement plan that lasted a whole year. 1 year we followed it. So to sit here and say we need a plan, the fact is we have a plan. we just refuse to follow it. So if we want to create a new plan, we still have to follow the plan. So there's no point in making or redoing a plan that we're not going to follow. So what we should really be doing is just following the plan that we have. If we have to right-side it and make some adjustments, then sure, I have all the confidence that Matt can do that. Regarding the police cars, I mean, Carol, I know you just went through what they got. And listen, I don't think anybody really wanted to reduce their request by 6. But we were comfortable enough doing that 6 because we have some additional revenue that we've identified that has a public safety piece to it that I think we would be in a commitment and an agreement of, if we get some of that revenue rolling in, that we can revisit this request of the 6 that we just took down. I mean, they asked in 17 for 11 and we only gave them 7, that -4. They were -5 on 18, -9 on 2019, -8 on 2020. And you can talk about how many they got, but these are how many they're behind each and every year. Behind 3 more on 21, behind 2 more in 2022, behind 4 more in 23, 5 more in 2025. I mean, even though they got 5 after the budget last year, still -5 on what their ask was. So listen, I think just the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And we can't keep saying we're going to follow this vehicle replacement plan because we need one and then not follow it. So that's my piece. You're not going to get a consensus from me, at least, to reduce this vehicle amount. Obviously, it is open for everybody. If you guys want to talk about it again tomorrow, that is fine. John will be running that meeting, but the PD is here now.
So I think there may be some consensus though on that, DPW is saying that one truck moving it from the purchase to the
Yep.
lease and removing the one that's on the lease off. So that would be a reduction of 320.
That's fine. If that is the true reduction number, and they're saying that's fine, that's okay, but I'm still iffy on that because I'm gonna tell you, then I think we're gonna have another problem next year.
I'm not saying that they're happy about that. I'm
Right.
saying
Yeah.
that if you need to do a reduction, that would be their recommendation.
Although, what do they say about the best mediations is if everybody leaves unhappy, you've done your job, I guess. So, at any rate, any other discussion on the vehicles before we have PD? All right, so, hi, gentlemen, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If you guys, whoever wants to come on up or sit around the table with us, whatever you would like to do. I do not know specifically what questions we have for you as a group. I know that there were some questions in writing. I believe those have probably been forwarded to you. I do know that the police department is only one of the departments we want to hit tonight. So hopefully we can do this in a concise manner. That is why we wanted some of those questions to you ahead of time, so everybody could be prepared. And I have no doubt that you are anyway.
Thank you very much.
So how do you want to start? Do you want to start? Do you have anything? Okay, take it away, sir.
So if it's helpful, I would like to offer 2 points, if I might, that I think may help frame the discussion as you move forward. And then, depending on your preference, at the end of my time with you, I had 2 areas of concern from the last meeting, and I would like to speak as to those at some point if that is considered to be appropriate. I think there was some information that was communicated that frankly was not accurate, and it was personally troubling to me. But I will hold that and I will defer to whatever the council should wish.
You can start with whatever.
Okay,
Feel free.
I'm going to start with 2 what I would call framing type issues that I think you're going to find helpful. The first one, at the risk of repeating what you may already know, but I do think it's important to emphasize this, is that Rick doesn't come up with a number for you every year, right? Rick doesn't sit there and Rick doesn't walk around the lot and say, well, that car's looking a little bit beat and that one's a little bit aged, so I want a new one for this one and this one and this one and this one. As you have been discussing, I was listening to you on my way over here, discussing it for a while now. Sergeant Meyer, as part of the budget cycle, goes to Rick Davenport and says to him, on the XY axis of the age of the cars, the mileage of the cars, the year of the car, the engine hours on the car, the repair bills on the car, the value of the car if you sell it now versus if you sell it later. How many cars does the PD need to ask for this year? Candidly, folks, I'm not even sure why I'm in the car business, right? I'm not even sure, and I speak to my contemporary chiefs, many of them are not in the car business. Fleet gives a recommendation to the mayor, to the town manager, to the council, instead of what often seems to be this equally frustrating experience that we go through each spring. But the number which started out from Fleet this year was 17. From 17, it was paired by us a little more realistically, I thought, in terms of what we had, what we could work with, down to 14. The 14 went to the town manager. Footnote, one of those 14 is a social services car. I'm also not 100% sure why I'm asking for a social services car. 14 cars went to the town manager, and the town manager pared it down to 10. My understanding, and folks, let me be very clear, I don't begrudge this. I understand the difficult choices you've got to make and the competing responsibilities that you have. It went from 10 to somewhere around 7 or 8 now. So I think it's important to emphasize at the outset that the number that we start with is never a PD number. It's not a RIC number, it's a DPW number. And it started at 14, now it's somewhere around 7. And listen, I can work with 7. I can work with whatever it is that you want. So 8.
Hold on. So we may have talked about 10 in our meetings. I actually took it down to, I took it to 13.
Okay.
So you started at 13, not 10.
Okay.
So we're at
All right.
10, but I think our.
So now we're at 7.
Yeah.
But let me emphasize, I can
Just to be clear, no, hold on. Just to be clear, so what reached me was 14. 13, what I consider police vehicles plus the social services. The social services, I don't feel that we need to replace at this point based upon, I think, the availability of other vehicles that could be used. So my request is approximately in there about 13. I mean, and the reason I say approximately, because we have other money that we can use towards these purchases, not a lot, but it effectively made the $1 million that I had in my mind for police vehicle purchases a doable number.
thank you, sir. I appreciate the clarification.
No problem.
The second point that I think is important to understand is that last week I heard the phrase used, they're going to need to do more with less. I would like to offer for your consideration that when I came here in 2018, we had the same number of cars then that we have now, sans 2 motorcycles that we bought using federal asset forfeiture money because we needed to replace the 2 old, aged, decrepit motorcycles that frankly, I was told the town would not and never would replace. So 2 motorcycles were purchased that are additional to our inventory. They're not patrol vehicles. They're for parades and road races and the like. And 1 truck that we got under a grant of no cost to the town. So the number of cars that we had in 2018 when I arrived is the same number of cars that we have now, but I would offer, as a reminder to you, that since 2018, this council, and let me be clear, I've supported this, I've thanked you for it. The council instructed me to stand up a 4-person CPO unit. And you funded the salaries and you funded the healthcare, but you didn't add any cars in for those 4. You bumped up the SROs by 2, and you funded the healthcare and you funded the salaries, but you didn't add to the cars. You bumped up traffic by 1, healthcare, salary, not a car, and the town put a social worker in my PD. So 8 additional bodies. I've already accomplished 9% more with the current cars that I have, which are the same cars I had in 18. I think it very important, and I thank you for the opportunity to offer those 2 comments to sort of frame the discussion. If you would like, I will continue on with what I understand to be some of the questions But those are two that were particularly important to me to get out at the outset.
Mhm. So I guess the questions that were sent, did people, I don't remember who, I know Zach, I think you had sent any, I don't remember if anybody else had sent any. So you want them answered? All right, so if you want to just, I know that there were several, so if you can sort of give the brief answers, and I don't know if there will be any follow-ups, but.
So for one of the early questions that I got, and I think was actually from last week's meeting, it was also a question that was forwarded, was the equipment that goes in the cars. All of the patrol cars are fully equipped with everything that we could imagine that they would ever need. The cars that I would call the non-patrol cars, that I believe that we colloquially call, you colloquially call the administrative cars. My car would be an administrative car. Sergeant Meyer's car would be an administrative car. Those cars generally get less, but they still get an awful lot of the necessary equipment. So my car does not get an overhead set of lights. My car does not get an in-car computer. It doesn't need an in-car computer. My car does not get a cage to separate the front seat from the back seat. My car does not get that molded back seat where we would put a prisoner that would be easy to clean. But the administrative cars still have to get a large amount of additional equipment that the patrol vehicles get as well. And I don't want any of the following examples in any way to come off as smart alecky, but I'd offer the following for your consideration. If you want to tell me what car I shouldn't put an AED in, I won't put an AED in that car, and we'll hope that car doesn't go to the cardiac call. If you want to tell me what car I shouldn't put a rifle in, I won't do that. But that could be a car that's going to the elementary school for the active shooter. If you want to tell me what car I shouldn't put a rope in, that'll be the car that I hope won't go to the Connecticut River for someone who's drowning. The cars all get a baseline level of equipment. And there's a lot of equipment in there that, between my experience, he's been doing this for forever. He's at 40 plus. He's been doing it since he was like 13 years old in this town, right? You've got 150, 160 years of police experience here. And we are very comfortable that the equipment that's in the car is necessary to be in those cars. If anyone ever wishes to inspect them or inventory them with me, I'm more than happy to do so. I really contemplated how I wanted to address this issue, because I don't want anything that I say with the rapport that I feel I have with every one of you to be misconstrued. But please know that the cars are equipped to a level that we think is the minimum to satisfy the life safety standards that you would want within this community. Anything on that? Okay. The next subject area, and at some point I'm going to tap Sergeant Meyer in here, because I know enough to be dangerous and he knows a heck of a lot more than me, is the standard set by the state of Connecticut for vehicle equipment in police vehicles. There is no such standard. There is no such standard that I've ever seen. There's no national standard. There's no state standard. We equip the vehicles with, cones and fire extinguishers and police tape and flares and a rifle and an AED and a medical kit. The amount of equipment in the back of the car is, it's overwhelming, the amount that's in there, but it's in there for life safety purposes. There is no standard that we can hold you up against, other than I wouldn't want this department or this town to be derelict in the equipment that's available. There are police departments out there that certainly do less. I'm proud that we are not one of them, and I'm under the impression you are as well. What are the uses for admin vehicles, SRO, and school detective vehicles? What are they used for? So admin vehicles is not a phrase that I would specifically use, but I do know that it's a phrase that you use. Admin vehicles is, as I understand it, is meant to describe anything other than a patrol vehicle. So what we would call our school vehicles. And those are vehicles that are, very, very old cars that people use to go back and forth to training classes. Our spare cars are just that. They're fully marked, equipped patrol vehicles ready to go. But if my car is not available, if my car goes down, I've got to go and I've got to get a spare vehicle. SRO vehicles are vehicles that need to be fully equipped and outfitted as well, because they go out to the schools and they need to have everything that they would have there. I'd also offer to you, if there's two SROs at the high school and one of them makes an arrest, they're gonna leave with that individual in their car. We can't have that officer there, the other officer there without a car. Further, the SROs go on patrol when they're not in school. They supplement the patrol force, so they engage in other first line police activities. Detective cars are just that. They are their mobile offices. They are also filled with a lot of gear, plus whatever CI, criminal investigation type gear they would need for at-scene responses. I actually was very grateful, sir, for question number 3. If there was a consistent number of vehicles added per year and it was kept consistent for 5 years, would that lower the number, would that lower the ask over time? Air hugs, right? I'd give him a hug, but it would make him and me both uncomfortable, right? It was the conversation that you were just having and that I was listening to in the car on the way here. 7 vehicles per year, the plan that preceded me, would solve this problem. The problem is, or the issue is, that you are in arrears because of years of underfunding. So every year I come back to you with a grotesque number. And you say, how could that be? And I dance to try to be polite and try to offer the number is that high because of the underfunding in the years that followed. If we caught up, we could then stay caught up. 7 per year would seem to be more than adequate if we were even with the board. But years like last year, where there was a 0, means we're at a 7 plus a 7. The borrowing of cars and special events. I fear that I may, in my presentation, have perhaps inadvertently misled as to the frequency with which we need all the cars. I remember standing right up there and describing, and I think this is exactly the words that I used, on a Tuesday in February on the midnight shift, I have too many cars. And I, little dramatic flair there, because all I have at that point are the 6 officers out on patrol and maybe 1 supervisor who happens to be working. But I went on to say on the 4th of July weekend, on the night of the spring splash, on the night of graduation, on the day of a road race, I have barely enough cars. The frequency with which I need the vast majority of my cars is high. It's very high. It is not a situation where I am chronically overstaffed with cars. And if anything that I said caused any confusion, then I apologize for that. But I was not intending to, I was trying to identify for you the top and the bottom of the pillar. I was not describing for you large, vast periods of time where I have too many cars. The follow-up on that one was the concept of effectively mutual aid borrowing of cars. I would not expect Suffield to let me borrow one of their cars any more than I would expect you to be happy with me if I loaned out one of your cars. Beyond the practicality of somebody else putting miles on your car or Suffield letting me put miles on their car, please understand the realistic, the immediate day-to-day concerns. The radio, right? The radio is an issue. The in-car computer is an issue. All the gear within the vehicle, it's not our vehicle, it's not our gear, it's not our equipment. It's the vehicles are not fungible enough to be traded back and forth between departments. You would also get no trading, and I've never ever even heard of this. Towns do not borrow cars one to another. And even if it was a thing, you would get no cooperation from the state police, which borders us to the south and borders us to the east. You get no cooperation from Massachusetts. They're an entirely different sovereign government. So it would be us talking to Suffield, East Windsor, and Windsor Locks about borrowing their cars. They're smaller than we are. The borrowing of cars is just, it's not a thing. We wouldn't, they wouldn't have our gear. They wouldn't have our ammunition. They wouldn't have our magazines. They wouldn't have any of that equipment. So unfortunately, I appreciate the effort to offer out-of-the-box solutions, but that's just, it's not a viable idea. It's frankly unheard of. There was an additional question, and I thought a very fair question about how cars cycle out. And I'm gonna have a seat and invite Sergeant Meyer to speak to you. We have run the metrics, if you will, about what we would do if we got 10 cars this year. And please understand that what he's about to describe for you is effectively going to be almost like a double bump. Because and I think Mr. Coppler explained this last Wednesday as well, the new cars, if they were patrol cars, replace current line patrol cars that then are cycled down to become spare cars or some sort of lesser car. We're not going to take a new car and make it into a school car. The only place where the bumping doesn't work is we really can't take a patrol car and make it into a school car. So Sergeant Meyer has been working diligently yesterday and today to develop some of the more nuanced information that you want, and I'm going to turn it over to him for a few minutes. There are more questions, and I'll stand back up when he's done with what I think will be a detailed piece of what you want to know.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm trying.
So as the chief had mentioned, it gets rather complex with how we replace cars every year. Basically, I meet up with Rick Davenport over at Fleet, and he tells me, look, under the vehicle replacement plan, we have X number from the PD. We discuss whether or not we could squeeze a little more out of this one or that one based on low usage or things like that. And that we've done this year like we've done other years. As the chief said, we went from 17 down to 14. And in doing that, Rick Davenport and Fleet are the ones that identify through the plan which ones are the high mileage vehicles, which ones are over 10 years old or meet certain requirements where he knows he has high price maintenance coming up on these vehicles and things like that. And he identifies the actual car. And then I look through and I say, all right, this fleet number, this type of car is either unmarked and utilized in some kind of auxiliary capacity, whether it be an administration car, a school car, a detective vehicle, whatever the use may be. I look at it and said, all right, well, if that car is coming out of our fleet and it's going away, how am I going to replace that car? And as the chief said, we don't say, all right, well, we have a school car. We're going to buy a brand new school car, and it's not going to get it's going to get a good amount of use, but it's not going to get the same amount of use as an everyday patrol car or a detective car or an administration vehicle. So then we have to try to determine what we could shuffle around within the fleet so that we could place the new car somewhere else. So for instance, in order to replace a school car, for instance, on our fleet replacement plan, the first car listed at the top was fleet number 949. That one is a bad example because it's currently assigned to social services. But in that situation, we would say, well, that's an unmarked car. It's not a marked patrol car. It doesn't have cages and prisoner stuff and police radios and trunk equipment and all that specialty gear in it. I need to find another vehicle that's somewhat similar. It's not marked up like a police car. Where can I get a vehicle to replace that vehicle from? And I look to the administration vehicles, the DB vehicles, sometimes the traffic vehicles if they're unmarked, depending on what. And I have to find a vehicle to plug that hole now as that vehicle leaves our fleet. That then opens up an opening in the detective bureau, the administration, wherever I took that car from. And typically that's where the new car will come in. So for each vehicle listed here, in a way, the fleet replacement plan dictates what type of vehicle is being bought as new, whether it's an unmarked vehicle of some kind or it's a marked vehicle of some kind. And then we have to try to cycle through and say, all right, well, we want the newest car to be used the most. So they're frontline vehicles, and we want to then trickle down vehicles with a little bit higher mileage that still have some use out of them and move them into some roles that are a little bit more auxiliary and not as necessary for everyday, all-day operation. And really, that's how we cycle through our fleet and we look through this number. So, identifying kind of a scenario of if we got 10 cars, we kind of determined at that point that we could cut out some of the not administrative vehicles, but the unmarked vehicles. And we could have kind of a ratio of 7 patrol cars and 3 unmarked, whatever term you want to use for those types of vehicles. But typically they would come from detective or traffic type situations in this particular case, to then shuffle. So the new car would go into the detective role, the detective vehicle would then come off and go into that secondary role.
And then the oldest vehicle would then cycle out, we would turn it over to Fleet, and Fleet has the choice at that point in time, is there any life left over to use it anywhere else in town in non-police function? Or does it need to go to auction and try to make some money to return back to the town in the form of revenue?
All right, thank
All
you.
right.
Yes.
I'll continue on unless you wish to take the floor, or you want me to just continue to respond to what was sent to me.
I mean, I think whoever had questions sent them to you, feel free to answer them.
Okay. A question was offered as to the number of take-home vehicles. And I know this is always a concern to the council, and I can understand why. But for each one of these take-home assignments, there is a justification for them. And I'm also going to offer to you, and I don't want to retreat to this position too often, because I want to defend what I feel like I need to defend. But there have been no changes to the number of take-home cars that in my tenure. What was a take-home car before I got here is a take-home car now. And in fact, you, the council, a year ago, 2 years ago, and I are working to actually lessen this number because of the Crest take-home vehicles. And I can do that in a little bit more detail, but that goes off in a bit of a labor and employment law tangent. The 4 administrators have take-home vehicles. We are expected to respond at a moment's notice. I am never off duty. Mr. Belinda called me one day last week and he said, "Hey, are you still working?" And my response to him was, "I'm always working. I mean, I might not be wearing these clothes all the time, but I'm always working." And that includes responses back in, and that does happen with a reasonable degree of regularity from wherever I might happen to be. The 4 canine handlers have to transport their dogs. You can't just toss them in the back of your car. They're big, burly animals that bite, and they got claws, and you're not just going to put them in the back of your personal car. The canine cars have always been take-home vehicles. They are set up to be take-home vehicles. They transport their dog, which is really your dog. So there's 4. The 6 Crest operators. Now, this has been sort of a sticky one for a number of years. The logic from the town council and the police department administration, and I'm going to be very careful here, but the logic from those groups before I arrived in town was that the Crest operators needed individually assigned vehicles, and they needed to be able to take those home with them. There is an awful lot of gear that they carry, and they too are expected to respond at a moment's notice. With all the love and genuine respect and appreciation for what the Crest team does, and when they're the cavalry coming over the hill, I really, really, really need them. It is extraordinarily rare that they are showing up on a moment's notice and laying down on the top of a berm and taking a shot and saving a life. So the decision was made by this council a year or 2 ago to buy for them 1 vehicle. And it was going to be a vehicle for all of their equipment that can transport all of them. And that is the Crest truck that the last town council agreed to get. That would allow us to attrit out those 6 Crest vehicles. But now we have a bit of a labor and employment law problem, because the town had created a benefit. The town had offered a benefit to those individuals that had take-home cars. And I consulted with the HR director, and we spoke to the union, and we had a consensus, and folks, he did it, and I did labor and employment law. You're going to wind up in labor court if we take those vehicles away. So what I did was I sat down with the union president, and I don't think I'm speaking out of school, he would own this as well. And what he said was, we would agree that the incumbent members of the Crest team keep their vehicles as long as they stay on the Crest team and that car remains serviceable. So as people attrit off of Crest, or if tonight, if a Crest operator through no fault of their own hits a deer, you're done. You don't have an assigned vehicle anymore. And every one of them is aware of that. So I'm clawing back from this overall number, 6 individually assigned vehicles and they'll then become assigned to other, more pool type patrol vehicles, and you'll have 6 less Crest assigned take-home vehicles. I didn't create that system. I'm the one pulling those back. The last group, last groups are traffic and the detective bureau. The detective bureau has 3 individuals that have take-home cars. That is the detective division lieutenant commander, detective division sergeant, and the one on-call detective that rotates by the week or two. Those are the people that respond when we have the overdose. They respond when we have the shooting, when we have the violent crime, when we have the death. They're expected to get here immediately, and I want them coming in immediately. Traffic is the final group. It is the same thing for them. Their Metro Traffic Service obligations take them throughout the entire, largely Hartford County area, the Capital Region area. As we get Manchester and Coventry and Vernon to come here, when we have those serious injury or fatal accidents, they have to deploy there. We are going to be dropping that number down by 6 over time because of Crest. So it will, over time, eventually be brought down to somewhere around 16 or so. Right now, it is somewhere around 21 or so, number of people with take-home vehicles. And I believe with the exception of 2 points of personal privilege that I would like to get to at some point, I believe those are the questions that were advanced to me.
Okay.
There was one more question about the out of commission cars.
Oh, yes. So thank you. And again, if you folks saw a lot of presentations, so I understand if you misperceived, please forgive me if I misspoke. You saw a slide of what I call my big board, not your big board. That was meant to depict for you a moment in time. And at that moment in time, which was artificially high, we had 11 vehicles that for one reason or another were somewhere between Family Ford and Fleet and in the back lot, and they didn't start. Now that number on that occasion was higher than average, but that was not meant to depict 11 vehicles that were permanently out of service. Those vehicles are in various states of repair, and God bless the folks at DPW for putting them together, with spit and glue and duct tape when they have to and keeping them afloat. I'm sure there's other vehicles that are listed on my big board right now, but that big board did not represent permanent deadlining of cars.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate you answering those questions, and I appreciate the people who took the time to send them to you ahead of time so everybody was prepared. I think that that's a useful use of our time. If you have misinformation you would like to correct, the floor is yours for a few minutes, but I do want to make sure that we then open it up for questions. If anybody has any additional questions for you guys, go ahead.
Folks, I bring these items up with the utmost of respect, and I bring them up delicately, and I bring them up with the genuine affection that I have developed for all of you over the last 8 years. But comments were made, and they were troubling to me, and I feel it necessary, if only because of my own ethics, to set a couple of things correct. At a recent meeting, there seemed to be a rather inordinate interest in the chief's car. When you hired your chief in 2018, you hired him under a contract, and I didn't want a contract. I wanted the just cause statute. We went back and forth on a couple of different things, and the town said, we want a contract. Okay, then I guess it's going to be a contract if I want the job. One of the things in the contract was the chief gets assigned to him a vehicle, a police sedan or a police SUV. When I got here in 2018, I took a 2015 vehicle that the police department had in service. Most police chiefs I know take a new car every year or every other year without exception. I took a 2015 and 2018, and I drove that car until 2024. I drove that car until it was 9 years old, and it had 147,000 miles on it. I drove that car until it had no more good miles left because frankly, I knew what the optics would be if the chief took a new car. It would look as if perhaps I was taking a car to the exclusion of other people that needed a car, that I was displacing in some way. I drove that car until it was 9 years old and it had 147,000 miles on it. It was the last sedan It was the last sedan that we would see at regional chiefs of police meetings, which were held once a month. My coworkers were driving brand new cars. I was driving a 2015 as recently as 2024. At some point, I had to take a new car. And I took that new car in 2024. It now has about 40,000 miles on it. So it's newer, but not new. And it is very likely going to be the last car I'm ever going to get from this town. I will drive that again until we're at the end of its workable life. Your chief has read the leadership books, and the Simon Sinek quote, "Leaders eat last," is what your chief has tried to inculcate in this department. I would not and did not and have never taken a car out of the appropriate order or until my car was at death's door. The second matter that came up last week that caused me, frankly, some consternation reflected upon what I thought would be helpful, what I thought could be of assistance to the council 2-3 years ago, something like that. So we were doing the same thing 2 or 3 years ago. And I thought to myself, because the reference that came up in the meeting, it was talking about the police department, and the person that made this decision, it was me. The idea was to show the council the level, the quality, the condition of some of the cars that were still out there as frontline patrol police vehicles. So for that council meeting, we drove over 3 frontline patrol police vehicles. Now, were they 3 of the newest cars we had? No, they weren't. That wasn't the point. The point was to bring over 3 patrol vehicles that were currently in service that were toward the end of their lives, so you could have the opportunity, and frankly, nobody took me up on it, to go out and inspect the car or to go for a ride in the car if you wanted at 20, 40, or 60, or in theory, 80, 100, or 120 miles an hour. Nobody wanted to go for a ride. Nobody wanted to inspect. Those cars were not old jalopies in the back of the lot. Those cars were currently serving line patrol police vehicles. And to the extent, perhaps unintentionally, perhaps the speech was hyperbolic, I don't know. But to the extent that that representation sort of makes it look like I was duplicitous to the council or that I was deceitful to the council, it is hugely important to me that you understand that is not the case. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, John, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, so first of all, I do have to say, I am going to have to excuse myself shortly, but I do have some things I want to say here. And to you, Chief, I feel right now that I owe you an apology on behalf of many of us who I know are going to feel the same way. You should not have to come to a meeting like this and defend your department the way you have here tonight. It is, frankly, to me, offensive and unconscionable that the council would put you in that position. No one in this room knows how to run a police department but you and the people who work there. Our job is to give you the resources that you need, because you know what? When you dial 911 in this town, it's you and your team that's going to show up. And to make the insinuation that we should give you less is just ridiculous. And I'll tell you, I know this community pretty damn well, and there's not a person out there that I know that thinks that your department is underperforming or gratuitous in your requests to keep us safe. And in recent months, we've seen what your department does when the proverbial you-know-what hits the fan. So you're right. I did the math. We are literally 44 vehicles in the hole because we've been shorting you year after year after year after year. And we wonder why you're asking for 15 vehicles. It's because we've been doing this. So I'm not going to talk about your department anymore. The budget that's submitted and where we've gotten with cars, that's it. That's me. I hope that I can get consensus and agreement from the people that are in this room, but I apologize to you because your department is one of the best regarded police departments in the state of Connecticut, not because we pay you more, not because we fund you with more things, not because we have extra equipment. It's because you're trained, you're disciplined, and you just have a level of service that is unparalleled here. We should be proud of what you do. So I just had to say that. Your budget, in my mind, is where we are. We've cut what we can cut with a promise that we're going to fill in the holes down the road. And that's what we're going to do. That's where I am. And I hope I can find 5 other people that can agree around that. So thank you so much for coming. I appreciate the clarification that you've given everybody. And I hope that this puts this to bed once and for all. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, John. I totally agree, and you have consensus from me. Does anybody have questions for the chiefs for his budget? Carol?
So I just want to make a statement. I don't think anybody that is going through this budget looking for savings for the residents of this town are insulting their police department. I actually, to make hyperbolic statements that because we're doing what our role is, we're the fiduciary for the town of Enfield, I take offense to. So my husband worked for the police department for 34 years. I would never dream of insinuating that doing what we do is calling our police department incompetent or they can't do their job or anything. We have, in my opinion, we have the best police department in the state of Connecticut, bar none. Every man and woman that works in that department gives everything they have to this town, and they deserve every piece of respect that they deserve. And I just want to say that I hate the hyperbolic statements. It really bugs me. So what I will say is, if you look at the years that were not funded, it's unacceptable. I was not sitting there for those years. I look at the years that there were zeros or ones. I wasn't there for those years. I'm not going to take the hit for those. But when we look at a budget, and if you go back, and I want to thank the chief for the chart I got today and the request that I made for the breakdown in the vehicles. I really appreciate it. Because it gives me a really good perspective of like the catch up that was done, right? So if you look at the years that were either zero or flat funded, they go back into the like 2018, 2019 years. And then if you go forward, and Matt can share, if you haven't already, Matt, I didn't look who was on the email, but we're trying to vote and do this stuff.
Everyone received it, and there's hard copies tonight.
Okay, perfect. Oh, okay, perfect. So I think what's important to see is that if you look recently, you know, the vehicle numbers are up there, right? So we've done a lot of catching up since 2018 and 19 when they were big goose eggs. And I don't agree with those, by the way. I know who was in charge, and I think they were terrible decisions, and I would not make those decisions myself. So what I'm looking at is I want to get back to like a number that we can fund every year and be supportive of and not cut. And I think, like, for example, the chief mentioned the 777. that worked really, really well. And I've noticed, if you look at these numbers that we were given, we have 10 in 2025. We have 6 plus 1 in 2024. We have 12 in 2023. We have 11 plus 1 that was funded with grant funds in 2022. In 2021, there were 6. So I think the good news is we're kind of catching up, if you will. So I think that's great. So all I think this chart shows is that we've done a pretty good job of kind of restoring those cuts that were kind of really hurt in 19 and 18. So what I'd like to do is I'm happy you were here to kind of do the presentation. These are really helpful. The charts on how the catch-up's been working out. So I appreciate this. And I did just want to make that statement. I think we have to be careful when we make accusations that people that were elected to do a fiscal job for the residents of the town are in any way making bad statements about their departments. I think that's really, really not a good look. So I just wanted to put that out there. And I thank you, Chief, for being here tonight. I do appreciate this very detailed breakdown of the vehicles that have been purchased recently to do kind of catch up. So thank you.
Carol, did you have a question? Before I move on?
No, I don't have any questions at all for him.
Does anybody have a question about the PD budget? Because that is what we are here for.
You have a question?
And if we do not have a question about the budget and it is where it's going to be, we are moving on. Because there is consensus to move on. So unless you have a question specifically about a budget item,
I just want to.
we are moving on. We are not commenting. Go ahead.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
mean, you have a question, that's fine.
It's just a comment.
No, I do. You know, my questions are related to the budget and I don't make things personal. Okay, so it's my understanding, so first off, you noted that we don't have, so there's no state standard for equipment, yes?
Correct.
Okay, and do you know, I don't want to put you on the spot, do you know the variations kind of like on a scale of where, and when I was talking about equipment, I was being a little more ambiguous than you. So I was talking also about lights in the cage, and so expectations around that. That was what anything that's added on to the vehicle after it comes off the lot is what I was referring to for equipment. So I was referring to like what variations are there among municipalities in the state?
Every municipality is going to transport prisoners with a caged area in the back. The only organization that doesn't do that is the state police, and I can tell you after 2.5 decades of that, that's not a good plan. It never was a good plan. Every organization is going to have a cage. Every organization is going to have a back seat. It can't be the nice leather seat. It's got to be the plastic molded seat that people that can be easily cleaned, amongst other concerns. We know that overhead lighting is better perceived by motorists than internal lighting. So having overhead lighting and putting that extra light bar on the top is always preferable. I have actually turned down requests from officers that canine handlers, primarily that want to have their vehicles a little more slick top. So overhead lighting is preferable. The siren, the spotlights, the extra lighting on the car is saving, it's saving somebody's life. Maybe it's just saving somebody from a lifelong back injury when they get rear-ended. The extra lighting is what that is for. And those vehicles are equipped by a vendor out of South Windsor who does all the vehicles within that larger area. It would not be advisable. It would be highly inadvisable to underlight or under cage or under back plastic seat to non-spotlight a vehicle in terms of the infrastructure of the car itself.
Okay, thank you. And when I was referring, and I think last time you had addressed about the borrowing of the vehicles, I understood that part. What I was referring to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't go and aid Summers with our staff and our vehicles for like the Four-Town Fair, right? Is it just the Explorer? Because
The Explorers would go to the Four-Town Fair. We would go to any town that was having an emergency.
Okay, so it's just the Explorers at the Four-Town Fair. We don't have actual personnel there.
And the auxiliaries.
Okay,
Yep. And obviously the towns, share for unfilled overtime assignments that have to be filled for traffic safety.
so that was kind of what I was elaborating on when, because, and you clarified when referring to those frequency of events, because I was thinking, oh, if there's 1-2 events a year, taking advantage of, overtime for other departments to come here, not necessarily borrowing those vehicles, but I think you addressed that point. I think those are my only questions. I do have one comment, and I think it's really important.
Sir, if I can just interject.
Yes.
You may see extra jobs, so an outside services job, that's when we can't fill jobs here in town, which is rare nowadays. But other agencies, we do offer the opportunity to come into Enfield. So a Suffield officer may come in with his own cruiser to work a traffic post, paid for by a private vendor, and the same goes forth of us going to Suffield, us going to Windsor Locks, us going to East Windsor. So that is the only time, not for patrol purposes, but for outside services, extra jobs. We bring our own cruiser to their towns, they bring their cars to our towns.
Okay, thank you. And I think this is an important conversation to have here, just as we level set and continue to go through the budget, is poverty is not an indication of abuse and neglect. So I think to tear apart individual members of the council for wanting to be tough on the budget doesn't mean that our intentions are to hurt departments, that we don't value departments. I am not a counselor in the city of Westport. I am not a counselor in the city of Greenwich. I represent a community that has very, very low socioeconomic status where people are struggling to live. And I have to weigh that on my shoulders. And I think to make a case that some people are coming in with bad intentions about individual departments or people is wrong. And I think to have the expectation that we can provide more for a community that is struggling without taking into account that we are struggling is wrong. If I was a city councilor in West Hartford, this would be a different conversation, but I'm not. And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person or any other counselor who asks these questions are bad people or that we don't have faith in the departments to do the jobs that they do. It means that we know there are people in this town that are struggling. And it's our job to figure out what we can do to provide the most that we can with a little less so people can survive here. It'd be great if we represented millionaires. I'm not a millionaire. Thank you.
Thank you. Closing comments?
Yeah,
Cindy?
thank you. I just want to compliment our Enfield PD and thank you all for coming. I was present when you were stripped of the requested vehicles that one year when you got 0. And part of the reason why I voted against the town budget and the Board of Ed budget was because of that. I believe that your department is one of our most stellar departments that we have. And I hope that you and all of your people in your department know that the majority of our town of Enfield values the fact that we have you as our PD. And I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
You and all of your department. Chief, you're running a great ship and please keep it up for us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're free to go.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'm sorry. I appreciate it.
So you dropped the groups.
I know, all over the floor. Okay. So it is a little before 8 o'clock. Let's move on. I don't know where people want to go. I will assume there's going to be some discussion. Well, why don't we do this? Just because I know I am unavailable to be here tomorrow. John will be running the meeting tomorrow. I'd like to go over my 2 suggestions for DPW, and then honestly, I can turn it over to any other department. If you guys have departments, I assume you're going to, okay? So, and Cindy, you're gonna remember this probably, and I think Bob, you will, and Marie, you probably will as well. So the trades the two trades positions for DPW. Now, I'm gonna start by what I'm gonna say by saying I've advocated for having these trades three. Well, one's the trades leader and then the plumber and the HVAC or electrician or whoever. I think it's HVAC. So I've advocated for those positions to be in the budget. I've advocated for us to have those positions because I think they're worth their weight in gold. That being said, we have not been able to fill these positions since I've been on the council, right? And maybe since Cindy's been on the council, but maybe not. So I still want to have these positions. I still want to try to go out and fill these positions, but I am also very cognizant and realistic that they are not going to be filled in July. They are probably not going to be filled in August, September, November. It is just not an easy, skilled profession that in a municipality that you're going to find a person who's going to come here and do that job. So instead of taking it out of the budget, because I think that would leave us a very large hole for next year, my suggestion is reducing it for a 6-month salary for this coming year. And if we fill it, great. If there needs to be a transfer at some point, if we find somebody, say in August or September, that's a great problem to have because I think it's going to be worth its weight. And then we sort of if we find somebody this year, then we fill it fully and we fund it fully for the next year. So I was originally only thinking the two, which would be the plumber and the HVAC at 6 months instead of the 12 years. So I would just say a reduction of the salary in half because I do want those positions to be in the budget. But I guess, does it make sense to reduce the trades leader position too?
So let me.
Because I know I emailed you about this.
Let me explain. So what our thought process is with this is that we want to have 2 electricians.
Yes.
And so we believe, I mean, you just never know what tomorrow is, right? What we believe is our current electrician will be moved up into the leader position.
Yep, when he goes back.
We would then fill his position, so we would have a second electrician at that point. And then we'd be hiring the plumber and the HVAC. Now, I'm not Eric in DPW, would be able to speak to this a lot better and argue with me and tell me how wrong I am. But, you know, the HVAC is an important position. We need that.
Yep.
But the electrician is more important to me because electricians can do some HVAC. So you know, in terms of the priorities with this, we would be going after that second, you know, electrician as being the most important. And so if you don't fill the crew leader position, you know, we probably wouldn't be filling the HVAC position. We'd be looking for an electrician position and a plumber, right? If you allow us to get the crew leader position, then we get the second electrician. And then, you know, we go about trying to fill those other 2. But the plumber is the next priority after the electrician because we don't have one. And then the HVAC.
Right. To be clear, I want them all filled. Like I want people in all 3 of those positions, but I am also not sure that that's going to happen immediately. And if history is any indication of what's going to continue to happen, it's not going to be a quick process. So what I would rather not do is not put us in a major hole for next year and having to fund 3 positions newly, but let's fund 6 months. And I don't even think I would do 3. I would suggest 6 months of 2 and leave that third as a full 12 months. So originally I was just thinking sort of your HVAC and the 2 trades positions, forget the trades leader, keep them at 12 months. My suggestion is 6-month reduction on those 2 trades positions. Then we fund them at half year. If we get them before a half year, great, come back to us if there needs to be a transfer or something that comes from the general fund for it. So I know that I've discussed this with some people. I don't know if other people have comments. If we have consensus on it, let's put it on the board. I know I didn't, okay, I know I didn't discuss it with you guys, but I figure this is just, it's just a way not to overtax it, but let's not put us in a complete hole. All right, so if we can do that reduction of 6 months for those two positions.
So I can get the numbers here real quick. So it's just in your mind, it's just the HVAC and the plumber position. I mean,
Yeah,
so
unless you
there-
tell me that it should be the HVAC and the trades leader position, which in my mind doesn't, I understand maybe it makes sense, but I'm looking at the two lesser expensive ones, because the trades leader is gonna be the more expensive one. So even if you get, if you get somebody in this one, you can still transfer those funds. Does that make sense? I know I may not explain
But
it.
not, I'm just, it doesn't necessarily make full sense to me. I just try to get to the number for it.
Yes.
For you, okay. So you're not going to fill the trades leader at all?
No, fill it.
Okay.
12 months, fill it. Don't touch, that is,
What page was that? Just so I can look at.
isn't that in the budget,
I know, but what page of
58.
the budget was that?
right?
58.
All three of
So-
them are in the
Yeah,
budget.
right now, in the proposed, all
Yep.
three of those positions.
So the trades leader keep, don't touch it.
Okay,
The
that's the 12
HVAC, yep, that's the 12 months. We're not touching them.
Okay.
Forget them for this conversation.
Okay.
The plumber and the HVAC are the ones that I want to
Yep.
take 6 months
Okay.
off of.
okay.
Now, fill them tomorrow, that's great. I will gladly find the money for it, or we will find the money for it, but my suggestion is it's not gonna happen.
Can I make a quick request? Can we take a look at all of the new positions tomorrow? I want to kind of see where we're at with them.
They're under, aren't most of them, some of them are under DP. Why don't we just do
Well,
it?
we
by-
might see.
The ones that we're
I was
looking,
gonna say, why don't
I
you
have the
just
positions
finish
we're
out
looking
tonight
at.
with those, because I mean, it's not gonna be that much more
Yeah,
discussion.
we can, yeah, we
Okay.
can, if we, because I'm assuming, you said that was one.
I have,
Yeah.
I have the positions we're looking at. We weren't looking at that one particularly, but I do like the idea of 6 months.
Okay, so let's put those up. And again, I want to be very clear. If these are filled, since they're in the budget, if they are filled before January, that is totally fine. If they fill these in August, great. We'd be happy. I'm not saying don't go out to bid
If you're
or
realistic.
put them, yes.
Yeah.
Let's try to get
You've
them
been
done.
looking for how long, Steve?
Well, that's the point. I'm looking for,
I said that.
as long as Cindy's been on the council.
No, I said that.
I want my raise and I want my pension.
Good, perfect. Okay. So that is my suggestion. Thank you very much for the consensus to put it on the board.
Is that salary only or?
Well, hold on,
He's
hold on.
gonna
I'll
put in-
get you a number here in a second.
He's gonna put in the
I
numbers.
just have to remember where I put all these numbers.
I'm entitled to a pension, you know that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so the question was about the other positions. Marie, you said that was also on your,
We have some that were looked at, we would
new positions?
the new positions. We have several new positions that we would suggest we don't do.
Okay.
Not trying to mean the department, it's just that
Yeah, do we want
I
to just
agree
deal
with
with
you,
those now?
Zach. We don't live in West Hartford or Greenwich or Westport.
Okay, what are
So-
the, what are, so.
So the HR generalist, Steve, don't shoot me. But again, I don't think it's somebody that we need right now. I think your HR department works very well. So that would be one. Again, we may not get consensus, but it's one that we feel.
What's the cost of that? I thought it was
It's
cost neutral.
51.5.
Well,
Well,
it's not accurate. Because we're really shifting from the town manager's office down that one. It's actually gonna be cost savings with the savings we're gonna produce in the HR department. My son is coming off insurance. Sue Wilson's not in our insurance anymore, so I'm using the savings we're gonna use to pay for that increase. And the reason why I'm a proponent of that, Sue retired once, she could retire any minute. I need to start succession planning. I need to start training people to take on these responsibilities of workers' comp, OSHA, FMLA, wellness program, health insurance administration, pension. That's a huge ask for one single person. Sue can do it because she did it before, but we don't have Sue forever. I got a plan. And if it's costing to the town like it is, why not do it now?
Again,
so let me just, if you do that, the number really is 13,000. They would be, because you'd be shifting things around again, so it'd be just a savings in what you're saying of $13,000.
Okay. So your suggestion.
So you're saying, I didn't understand it was a 13,000. I was just going by the number in the book.
I know. It's misleading. It's new to the department and
Right.
I'm not new to the town because it's being reshifted from, that was a hybrid position we had in town manager's office and HR. We're gonna shift her all the way down there and just learn HR and expand her responsibilities.
Yeah, you guys had talked about
So you
that.
have somebody in mind already?
Someone's already working. It's stuff.
Okay, okay. Well, I don't know
Yeah,
everyone.
I know. That's why I need to
I
explain it.
don't hang out here. I really don't.
Well, when you come into the town manager's office, you see that lady in the front sometimes.
I always know.
Okay, what's the next one?
So Matt's gonna shoot me on this one. The assistant revenue collector, again, it's $66,000. Is that
6 months. Yeah, that's 6 months.
on page 38?
Okay, one second. I just want to get him this number here.
Yeah.
So it's totally 2 times, so it's like 2, yeah, it's double that.
To do this.
So 2 is double
You
that.
had these suggestions.
So that's 6 months of 2.
Consensus, and then we're on to various.
That's
I
full,
mean, you
full
can tell me
benefits.
Whatever you wanna do. I mean, I'm just gonna do, this is what we've always done because we put it out there. There's no consensus.
That's
There's
what I'm
consensus.
My guess is if,
7.6.
it might just be.
128,
quicker to put them out
938
there,
for one position.
tell us the reason.
Salary.
What I-
Yeah, I know.
And that means that's-
876 is.
Yeah.
We just going around.
Well, no, just ask.
Sorry, no.
Yeah, I think there's consensus.
Oh, that's a total.
Number is 128, 938.
But again, I mean,
50%
asking the
that.
question about the HR generalist, I didn't know it was
Yeah, they
last
said
year.
that before, and I don't remember.
They presented it.
It was,
I'm sorry.
I don't remember what it was, but, okay, those are the numbers, thank you,
Okay,
the total.
needs to do it. Okay,
Okay.
sorry about that.
So that's all right, so assistant tax collector is how
The
much?
revenue collector is
Revenue-
66,000.
66,000, okay, that's their suggestion to come off the board, is there consensus? Yeah, but we may not need
Okay,
your explanation.
okay.
If you have something,
Nope,
you tell
nope,
us,
nope.
but what I thought we would do
I get it.
Go through
Go right ahead.
is we're gonna go through the list, and if there's not consensus, there's.
Okay. I'll shut.
Then I do, yes, all right, is there consensus to put that on the board and take it out of the budget?
Which one?
For me.
Assistant revenue
Assistant
collector.
revenue,
That
collector.
was what I was thinking about too.
I'd be fine with that.
Yeah. I would think.
What, to take it out of the budget?
Yeah.
All right, so that's,
And Carol, I know is a yes,
all
obviously.
right, that's 5, so I am not in favor of doing that.
I am not either.
Okay.
On that.
No, 5. All right, so you all can table that and deal with it tomorrow when John and Carol are here if you want. I think that with the license plate thing that we're talking about, with the cameras with the schools that we're talking about, with the fact that the BAA is now reduced our grand list by $1.7 million this last year, and we have reval coming, my suggestion is that's a bad idea, but you guys can revisit that tomorrow if you want, because it's 5 right now. Go ahead.
Okay,
Just one quick question, not to interrupt you, but I am going back to the assistant revenue collector.
Mhm.
Full-time position or part-time
No,
position?
that would be a full-time position. They actually had requested a part-time position and have a part-time position. And so this would be elevating, it. I'm not mistaken, be elevating that one up to a full-time position. Or we keeping the part-time, so we're keeping the part-time. So this would be a full new position. So,
Benefits?
yep, you can have. Yep, yeah, it's
Yes.
$114,000 fully loaded.
Okay, that's what 114.
so the total would be 114 after, with benefits?
Well, yeah, the fully loaded number is 114,
Yeah,
192.
that's the figure that I was kind of
Okay.
shooting for.
Maya had,
I just want to reiterate 2 points that Matt had brought up earlier about this position. It's time to do succession planning in that department. There are a lot of mistakes that are being made, so that position would catch those mistakes and maximize our revenue. So over time, this position is just going to pay for itself. And with all of the business coming into town, the personnel that we have in that office is not going to be able to handle it correctly. And we are going to have some developers that are really, really upset with us. Some taxpayers as well.
agreed.
That's all.
All right, Marie.
On the custodians, we'd be giving 2.5, 2 full-time and a part-time, not the 5 that they're requesting.
So you want to take 2.5 off?
Yes.
Okay. Is there consensus for that?
I'm a no.
No?
How many are you taking?
2.5, so you would
Out of
have
the five? So you
two
take
new
three
ones
more?
plus a part-timer to float around if somebody's out sick.
No?
Absolutely.
We need custodians.
Okay, next. Sorry.
Okay. The senior center program specialist.
Have that one on here too.
Maybe we need an explanation.
I'm a no on removing the program specialist.
Can we ask you, our mayor, Steve,
I'm a no on this.
They did the presentation.
it's a new position, correct?
Well, this is an elevation, so this is a part-time position right now that they would be making full-time.
Yeah.
So if you eliminated it, we would have to reverse out the full-time piece and there'd still be a part-time component to it.
So they do have this person doing part-time. They just, correct.
So the increases of what, right? Because that's what I recall it. I recall it being really low, like the HR generalist. It was.
Well, it's also the health insurance that comes with being a full-time.
Correct.
Right. And this is what they were talking about when there's one person out who I believe might be out for a while. There's nobody at the
Mary's
front
doing-
desk.
Yeah.
And then Mary's doing double duty.
Yeah.
So, and I think they did say, I mean, my opinion, they did say consistency and familiarity is very important to the seniors, not to the seniors. So, while I appreciate, while I appreciate that, Maureen, I would no on that. Was there a consensus to put it on the board and take it out of the budget? All right.
That's it.
That's it?
That was the positions we had.
All right. All right, perfect. So I know that there may have been like, there was the CEO officer, which I think we were good with. So we're done with the new positions people. Okay, perfect.
Great.
So 812, is there a department you want to go? Is there a department that anybody else specifically wants to go through? All right, I'm assuming, do you?
I still have some few questions with DPW, because honestly and truly, the answers I got the other night really didn't sit well with me. But wherever you guys want to do this, I'm just here to tell you what we think.
Did you have questions?
I still have some, like office supply. Yeah, I can go through this.
Okay,
and-
well, no, let me ask. So are those questions that you think Matt's gonna be able to answer? Did you
I
send
think
them to
so,
him?
because if, again, I don't really think I got the answers to the questions I asked the other night.
Okay.
And I have a question about the machinery. Because if you look, I believe they said the machinery for the 44,000, let me get the right number, I have the page numbers all down. $44,250. I believe they said that was for the fire alarms, correct? Because we took over the fire alarms. Is that what they said? They had to buy something for the fire alarms?
Not for machinery.
Well, then, no, okay, then maybe that was for the floor scrubbers, which I still think should be part of CIP. There was something in here for the fire alarms, and then, because when I looked in
Yeah,
CIP,
so that would be B and G. Hold on.
And Marie, when you are done that, I apologize. Zach did have one thing.
okay.
If we can go to him, and Zach, we'll go back to you. You had a couple
I
more
can't
questions.
finish the nice.
I know there's like that thing
love
there.
I don't want to have you guys in a scenario tomorrow where you're here till 10 PM. I don't really think there's a heck of a lot. I mean, my questions have been answered, because I sent a bunch to Matt, and he got some information for me. So Matt is gonna look for that answer.
Yeah, so that's in 5,500 other for purchase services, fires.
What page number was that, Mom?
Well, in the book,
Professional services.
B and G would be, page 57. It would be under the 53 for professional technical. I'm sorry, no, it would be under 54, other purchase services.
No, it's not that
55.
one.
Under 55, other purchase services where it says $25,000.
It's fire monitoring. I
So-
already noted that.
So
Okay.
last
All right.
last
Which
year.
one?
So last year, that was covered under the IT budget. They moved it from the IT budget this year to, E&D.
So is that different than the fire extinguisher code compliance?
Yes.
That's completely different.
100% different. That is because they changed back, so I think when I was here, they changed the code to where you could remove most of the fire extinguishers in buildings. They now changed it back for education that they have to have fire extinguishers in buildings. And so that project would get us in compliance by getting the number of fire extinguishers that we need to do.
Okay.
This is just for the alarm systems in the buildings. That way we have, they have better control over how things are done.
Okay, the other one was on page 65 under the public works, and it was, again, you said under other professional services, it went from 4,000 to 43,000. And you said it was mapping or something like that we weren't doing.
So professional service, so in that one, the refuse collection and disposal. So one of the things that came out of the report that was done was that we needed to look at the routing to try to get more efficiency out of the routes that we do. This, by the way, was something that when I was here last, I thought we'd put it in the budget, but apparently it was done or wasn't done, I don't know. But again, when you are handling the level of service that we are, making sure that the vehicles are traveling the most efficient way to get things done, that saves you money. It saves you miles, it saves you time.
We have GPS, we have all the data on the GPS. And
Right,
last year, when we questioned the routes, Donald came right back and said, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. It didn't cost us $43,000.
So this is a study. It will be done by professionals to look at it. Well, I mean, again, you
I'm not-
you
I'm gonna
can
be honest with
disagree or
you.
just like, but the fact is that if you don't periodically, and I think we haven't ever done this unless we did it again right after I left. If you don't periodically look at your routes, you're not being the most efficient. And there have been changes. You change service, the way you did things in the last couple of years by eliminating a truck. You made a decision without knowing what the results were. I mean, you see something going on, but do you? I mean, I've met with them. I don't know if we're being as safe, being as efficient and doing the things that we need to be doing. This gives you the surety that you're looking at it and you can answer the question, are we being efficient? Again, do you have to do it? No, you don't have to do it. But at the same time, if you want to get efficiency out of the system to save money, time and effort, this is what you need to do.
And it's a one-time expenditure, or is it something that we're gonna be doing every year?
You wouldn't be doing it every year. And realistically, the only time you would do it after this would be probably in a 10-year period, just to make sure that, if things, you have more stops, more tips, whatever, would do that. Or if you've, looking to decrease the number of trucks, like things like that, you would do it again, right? So it's not something that you do every year. You don't need to do every year. Once you set the routes, you're good. And like I said, it's not something that I recall that we did while I was here. I believe we were putting it in the budget. I have to go back and look at this. But I would liken it to what the schools recently did with their bus routes. They went, they got a professional, they got software to do what's necessary, and they're able to change their bus routes.
I look at it as it's a tight budget. I'm not gonna find savings in.
Yeah.
And
Can I go to
Go ahead.
Zach? Oh, was this on this piece?
Yes.
Okay.
I think you answered my question, but I just wanted you to reiterate, will this ultimately help with the vehicle replacement plan?
I mean, it's gonna have an impact. I mean, again, it should reduce the number of miles because it's making sure the routes are as efficient as possible. So,
And if we're bloated or, we have less than we need,
Well, you know,
I don't-
I think things like this expose things that the eye can't see. And so I'm not gonna sit here and say that it saves us money in any direct way, but it makes sure that we are as efficient as we need to be in providing the service.
Thank you.
It's just, you don't know what you find.
So, yeah, I had a suggestion, but just to follow up to Councilor Matthews' point. For this study, is it gonna take into consideration new developments, specifically developments in which the town would be responsible for refuse? Because I know there's a lot in the works right now,
Good question.
so that we don't have to go back to the drawing board in 2 years when they're done.
Yeah, so most of those developments are apartments that we wouldn't be servicing curbside anyways. You know, the unknowns would be, for instance, like.
Washington. That would be covered, like where they're on George Washington over there, those houses.
It would be now, yeah. I mean, typically what you get out of this is not just, you know, one time. You know, you get the software service as well, and you're able to change things as they go, you know.
So we'll purchase the software with it as well.
I'm not completely sure if that's how they were going about it or not.
That's okay. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'll get an answer to that. I'm not sure for sure. I don't want to say for sure.
All right, Mike.
Hang on. Oh, was it this one?
Yeah, I was gonna transfer my suggestion.
Yeah, 1 second. So we did ask if you have how many permits, the transfer station question,
Mhm.
how many permits were sold? What was the price this
Yep,
last
yep,
year?
let me bring it up
So
here.
I did ask him that, Zach, so he said he was gonna get that
Yeah.
information.
I didn't ask that, actually, but thank you.
Well,
for
no,
following
because
up.
that was a part of the questions out of our caucus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, 'cause I realized I just read it, sorry.
Yeah. So I want to get that information before you
Thank
start, because it is a phase in that we talked about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not the right one. You don't want to see that. Maybe you might want to see that one.
So what he's looking up is how many permits that or dump passes, I guess I should say, how many dump passes we sold, or how many were bought from this last year, and what the prices were. And the second part of that question, is there a different, because I don't actually know the answer, I don't remember if there's a different price for commercial or contractors versus residential. So he is pulling up that information, and then Zach, once we have this, you can give
So what
a
I-
suggestion.
What I have here. It's not getting larger. It's, it's a little bit, it's very large on my screen.
No, it's
I apologize.
large there.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
some numbers.
it's pretty large.
Give me 1 second. But I apologize for not having a hard copy of this one. This was one of the last things I did before I came down here, so. So on this column right here, these are a annual number, or, you know, 1 year number, fiscal year 25. On the right, year to date, fiscal year 26. So from the, you know, a revenue perspective, that's what we're showing here. So the number of 1-day residential permits, so that's someone coming up to the transfer station, just have one dump, don't need any more. Resident, 366 in fiscal year 25.
So they're $10 each.
10,
Yep.
over here on the left-hand side is what they're charged.
Yeah.
There's also a 1 day for commercial. And again, in fiscal year 25, there were 5.
Yep.
Then the annual residential, so that's year round for residents. There were 2,731 of those that were sold in fiscal year 25. And again, you can see on to the right of that, what the numbers are for the current year, year to date. You know, those numbers in the current year, we're gonna see go up again because we're getting into the spring and people are gonna want to get it. Now, as you go down, so that is kind of what I would call the fixed kind of revenue that we would be getting in. they change from year to year, but my guess is it's not gonna change dramatically from year to year, right? I mean, maybe a couple hundred difference from any one year. So then for the people that get in after they get that permit, there are those additional service, I guess would be for anybody, is the AC and refrigerator acceptance. So we do accept those. There's a $20 cost for those. In fiscal year 25, there were 646 of those. So then after that, you start looking at what are the tonnage revenues that we bring in. And so in fiscal year 25, we had, I'm going to kind of skip the brush after 5 punches, go to the bigger numbers. The trash, which is the bulky type waste, comes in, that's charged at 10 cents a ton, or excuse me, 10 cents a pound to the resident coming in. There were 771 tons of this. So you'll have to, I didn't do the math on this one, but it's, by 2000 and you can figure all that out. For trash under 260, so we have that feature that if you're coming in, you're below 260 pounds, you just pay a flat fee. And so this isn't the number of people that come in, that's the tonnage. I don't have the number, which would have been very helpful to me, but I do have the revenue that came off of that, so we can probably figure this out. $65,360. And then for the contractor information, there was 8.28 tons, which again is still charged at the 10 cents per pound for 1,656. So really a small number. And then you have the contractor under 260, which again was, 4 tons. So not a lot coming in really from the commercial side, a little bit, but not a lot.
Okay, so Zach, go ahead with your.
And well, let me just say on the right-hand side, I kind of didn't necessarily update, I just kind of encapsulated what I sent out to everyone, which was kind of that really quick back to the napkin type of analysis. And so I also here kind of said, well, the wages and benefits are kind of a fixed cost, right? So I mean, they're there whether 100 people come in or 50 people come in. And then really it's the disposal costs that are going to be the variable to do that. And so in my mind, I kind of link the wages and benefits to the kind of the pass cells, and then the disposal costs to the disposal revenue, the per ton revenue.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't want to just throw out numbers. So I guess my perspective is my long-term goal is to really start to close this gap to get us back to where the people that are using these services that, as you can see, the vast majority of people necessarily aren't utilizing are paying for those services. But I don't think that's going to happen overnight, and I don't think we can expect to anticipate all that revenue, and neither does some of my colleagues. So what I wanted to propose to you is what is a number you would feel comfortable with taking out of the general fund on the assumption that we will make an adjustment probably at the recommendation of staff to increase fees before the fiscal year that we would do in subcommittee.
Taking into account that I think they would probably discuss a phase in, so not like, it wouldn't go from $10 to
I'm not asking you to
$100 in
solve it.
1 year,
I'm not
right?
asking you to close the gap today,
Yeah,
but making some reduction, what would you feel comfortable with? Knowing our fees would go up for it.
Can I come back with a number tomorrow so I can think about that?
That's fine.
Could also be a DPW.
Yeah, I mean,
Could be a DPW question.
there's a component that really isn't very visible with this that we have to keep in mind. So if you remember way back in the day, remember this. You probably know where I'm going, because every year after that, you kept after me to get that back in the budget. But we took away the curbside leaf collection.
What? Cindy's never mentioned that.
And so one of the trade-offs that we made sure of was that the transfer station would be available and open. Now, I don't know if there was ever really anything done that connected, what the difference in allowing that. That was one of the things that we did. So what you have to understand is that there is that component of yard waste that goes into this, right? That is not really showing up from the revenue perspective, except for that after 5 punches, you get charged. But on the cost side, there is a component of that, right? Because we usually end up grinding all this stuff up. And so whatever we bring in, which I could get you those numbers and put those into this, is a considerable amount of yard waste that comes in as well. And so if, the issue we had way back when I was here with this is what is that level that you can increase it and still make it a valuable service to the residents, right? Because there is a benefit to this. I mean, if they can't get rid of something when they want to, sometimes they put it alongside the road. And we have to deal with it without any revenue. So I think there's a lot of components to this that we have to be careful of and understand that there are, if all we're doing is kind of reducing the gap, that's fine. But I think in trying to close that gap, it's going to be near impossible because there's other services and the impacts.
Yeah, I think right now, just this year is reducing the gap.
Okay.
I don't anticipate closing the gap as a
Yeah,
conversation this year, next year. Yeah.
It's gonna be flat.
So I will get you a number tomorrow.
I was gonna say, I just want to mention, I think we do this in East Hartford, but there is a correlation. The higher you raise it, the more illegal dumping you're gonna see.
That, yeah, we discussed, we actually did discuss that. Yep. There is always, yes. That delta. Okay. I'm sorry, you had a question?
Yeah, he answered it.
You got it?
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
All right, so you're gonna get back to us on, and again, I think this would obviously be contingent upon some of these fees going up. So it's an anticipated revenue, but also not shell shocking anybody. So it would be incremental. So I don't think we're looking for a $200,000 number here. I think I'm saying if it's 27,000 and it's $10, I think the minimum or the ish we would be looking at would be like another 27,000, even if you just double that annual residential to 20. So it's
Then we also have
50.
those rates under here.
No, I understand. You would or you wouldn't. I have no idea. I'm saying a simple math, that would be the number I think would be the base number. Ish is like that 27,000. But that's my food for thought for tomorrow because I won't be here. All right, so it's 8:30. I don't want to keep people too long, but I also understand that tomorrow is the last day. So again, I'm not going to just speak for me. I think we have, we've done a lot of work and I know you guys have done a lot of work. I know we have some consensus on our side on what we don't want to see happen and what we would like to see happen. You, Matt, you're going to come back tomorrow with the number for the 325 for the dump truck. You all can put that on the board and then decide if there's consensus to keep it on the board or not. Then that sounds like it's the only piece from tonight that might go on the board. Anything else that you wanted to, that you guys wanted to discuss tonight?
No, we're looking at some revenue for tomorrow.
Okay, so,
Struggling with.
all right, so revenue is what you guys are on then tomorrow. You're gonna have DPW here for tomorrow for what?
Really, I don't need them.
You don't need them here? So you don't really need, we don't need DPW here tomorrow. I think it's just gonna be maybe that question that Zach had. All done with the vehicles. If you have specific budget questions that Matt can be prepared for, please email him tomorrow or Wednesday morning. Please don't make him deal with it at 5 o'clock on Wednesday or at 6 o'clock when you guys start. I'm sorry, tomorrow. It was Wednesday.
Wednesday morning, come talk to me.
Good Lord.
I want to get back in a few days.
Yeah. I mean, again, there's some other departments. I don't know if people are gonna wanna go through them. What are you guys gonna do about the BOE budget?
We're looking into a couple of things.
So is that gonna be, you guys are gonna discuss that tomorrow? All right. So I mean, from my perspective, I'm not interested in cutting any of the BOE budget, but that is a discussion point for tomorrow. You guys can all deal with it. Anything else for tonight?
Yeah, so just one thing.
Yeah, go ready.
This is directed to Matt. Matt, what is, and just maybe you can tell us again, contractual obligations. How much did that increase this year?
Oh, I did ask him, what's the baseline if we just did contractual obligations? Yeah, he said he was gonna get that number for us.
Oh.
Thank you. No, he did, and he did say he was going to, he just hasn't, but no, thank you for reminding me. Yeah.
So can I just ask a question? So to be clear, you guys are really happy with what you've got on the board right now?
Yes. Me personally, yes.
Without making any other cuts? Or looking at any other revenues that could possibly come in? You're happy with what the mill rate is on the board right now?
So I will speak for me and I will tell you that I am always willing to listen to your suggestions like we have for the last couple of nights. And if you have suggestions that has the consensus of the council, then it goes up on the board. It's difficult for me to say that I'm interested in any of your revenue options because you've said none.
Well,
You haven't given us.
we have to look at it a little bit deeper. I've also been working with Carol over the
With all
phone.
and
and I
I
mean,
respect, like,
To
why
her
has it
defense,
happened?
our defense, there's three of us. And we've been working as diligently and as much as we possibly can.
Okay.
We will make some suggestions
In our
tomorrow.
defense, there's 8 of us, and so did we. So, and we all find the time to get together. I mean, it is fine. Listen, you come with your suggestions tomorrow. They'll either be consensus or not. I'm gonna tell you, you will not get a vote from me for cutting a BOE budget. I'm not willing to cut staff. Would I love a number to be less than that? Yeah, nobody wants to raise a mill rate. But we also know, at least for me, I also know long-term planning. We are not gonna solve 15 to 20 years of neglect and issues in one budget season. It's just not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. And I don't want to be the one who continues the neglect and the cutting, just this process that we continually do. So then next year's gonna be worse, and the year after that's gonna be worse, and the year after that's gonna be worse. You know, zeros don't work. We are living proof that zeros or 0.2s or 0.3 increases do not work for municipalities. They just don't. I would love it to all come from revenue. And again, that's why we had the suggestion of the out-of-state license plates, what Maya is working on with the landlords, from what Steve was talking about for the school buses, what Zach is talking about for the transfer station. These are revenue pieces, right? And that does shift the burden a little to not just raise taxes, it's to raise revenue to offset raising some of those taxes. So we are looking at those. If you have suggestions, bring them in tomorrow. That would be great. It would be great if we had them last week or the week before, so we could all discuss them. But now you're left with doing it tomorrow, which is your last budget night. Do you have the contractual obligation baseline number?
So just be clear, do you want the total number of all the personnel costs because?
No.
No, just want wages?
No, so I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the question that I asked you. If we did nothing but contractual obligations, what's our starting mill rate increase?
Yeah, that would, yeah.
That's our starting number,
Percent.
right?
Yeah.
If it's just contractual obligations, we start at what point, what increase?
So that's carrying over everything from the current budget,
Yes.
Yeah.
revised budget or original? budget?
Revised budget or, I don't care, whatever you, revised budget plus contractual obligation.
So many.
What's our baseline?
So.
Like, that's our starting
Yeah.
point.
Yes.
So right now, if, so assumptions.
Yeah.
So we have all the wage increases, health insurance increases, debt service carried over the same.
Yeah.
Let's see, reducing, so one of the things I would have to go into is like reduce what the capital transfer is, because looking at last year versus this year, and all those different things, we're at roughly $80 million. 80 million.
You know that what $1 million increase, like what number
Well, that
increase?
that
What
would
dollar,
be,
the dollar increase that is? I know,
that would be,
or what,
see, that's us. So you'd have to add in.
the BOE,
the
no,
BOE.
don't, just, you can carve out the BOE. So forget
I know,
the
but
83 for a
But
second.
to figure all this out.
Yeah.
Put that in.
Okay.
Because I mean, we could give you a mill rate, but it wouldn't include that, so we just.
Right, and if you didn't do them, don't give us a mill rate then, just give
Yeah.
us $1 million, like, give us the number, because we can convert that to a mill rate pretty easily.
Yeah, so I did my number not from the revised, just so
Yep,
we're clear. I
that's
did
fine.
it from the original budget. So the original budget for 2026 is 78 million, we'll call it 78.6 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're up.
1.4.
1.4.
Yeah.
So $1.4 million increase contractual, I feel like that's exactly what it was like the year before,
Pretty close.
right?
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah.
close.
I think that's exactly the number we.
Because, you know, I only precise raises.
Because it was right around 3, yeah.
Everyone
All
got
right.
this 3%.
So $1.4 million increase would then be
Yeah,
right around, go ahead.
But just, there's always more to the numbers than what you're saying, Gina, I'm sorry.
No, I know. I think it's
You know, what you have to understand is that, even though that there's a 3% increase across the board, you also are starting, there's been a number of retirements and people going out. So, people are starting at lower wage rates than people that go out, right? Health insurance, we say that's a 7% increase, because that's what the trend tells us it's supposed to be, but the reality is it may be higher or lower. I mean, numbers I have, show it as 7.4, but the reason it's 7.4% is because some of our employees that we've hired in the past are now family plans where they used to be singles. And so these things, there's a lot of changes in this that don't make it easy to do comparisons from one year to the next.
So 1 mil is 3.2,
Seven.
2.8, it's about a half a mil, give or take, it's right about a half a mil. Okay. So 1.4 of the contractual obligation, so half mil. So we start at a baseline, very simplified, right? Don't quote me on these numbers exactly, right? Very simplified, at a half a mil increase. Just because it's not.
That's correct.
Yep, that's easy math. Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you.
I just want the public to know about that.
No, thank you, because I forgot to follow up on that.
Thank you, Matt.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah, absolutely.
I
You can say 6 more things.
No, I don't. I just want to let you know that we got feedback on the field turf related
Yes.
to PFAS.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that you had that.
Thank you.
Add that to your next town manager report.
Yes.
Oh, I'm serious.
Oh, absolutely. That needs to be on the record for sure.
All right, anything else?
4 o'clock in the morning.
Any motion to adjourn? All right, good job, guys. Motion to adjourn? Made by Cindy. Just kidding, hold that. Take it back,
As
Cindy.
of
Go
right
ahead.
now, 1.77.
That's the number that was right up on the board? 1.77 is what we ended with?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
1.77 is what we ended with.
We'll send that out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
you're gonna start with the dump truck piece tomorrow. Okay, if there's consensus with that. Okay. All right, motion to adjourn made by Cindy, seconded by Maya, all in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hope the snacks were good, that's what we have.